Folks, we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. Stage right, my, I guess, left, theoretically, is none other than Bad Mike Battalata with his bottle of booze ready to go. Beneath us,
It's gonna be it's a crazy night. I mean, I
all
am
right,
gonna get fueled up because it is gonna be nuts tonight. Nuts, I tell you.
below us is none other than Luau Lou,
Luau.
Dandyline Games. He's got himself. Is that a Mick Ultra Organic?
Yeah, I've been trying to cut down. I know it's a sissy
No,
beer, but it
no,
tastes good. It's got the lime. Kind of feel like you're having one of those Coronas, only still cheaper.
the organic isn't bad. I'm not saying. I find that I drink most of my beer now when I escape to the Poconos or if I'm away at a con. If I'm home now, I'm like a whiner. I drink red wine now. It's better for the heart, That's my excuse.
Two old
So,
men, man. You guys are two old men. I got something I like to call whiskey, and I am drinking whiskey tonight
Living hard.
because I'm a man.
real men's.
Yes, and
drink.
because we have so much discussion. So and Lou also has a wonderful show that you need to listen to. This old dungeon, correct? That's
Yeah.
what it is, right? Yeah, and it's awesome. I'm going to take 2 points off because Bill Barrs is on the show, and that's always a negative. But no, if you want to hear some really cool stuff, I've listened to some of the. I don't listen as much as I should, Lou, but it's a great show. It is really fun, and they talk about some really cool stuff. They're a little breezier than Eric and I. They actually talk about some cool things. Eric and I get too much into. We delve into the news, the hard hitting stories, whereas Lou and them are like, okay, let's talk about pace setter games. Chill game, and they'll do a whole segment on some fun games and stuff. So if you want to kind of have a different look at gaming and actually more fun than Eric, they're way more fun than Eric and I.
Link is on screen, but it's also in the chat, so you all can go check it out. This old dungeon, it's actually a good title. Now you should try to have like multiple live streams where you have to make up names for each one. You really start digging at that point.
Yeah. Don't do Eric. Eric is see, don't do. Look at what Eric does, then don't do what Eric does because Eric, well, Lou has a family though. Lou can't spend all this time, yammering on and on like Eric does. With 16 different shows that Eric does. And, and interviews. I mean, he does interviews.
He's got a network, really, right? I mean, it's a Tenkar network.
Well, yeah, and actually, like now. Your cast is audio, correct?
Yeah.
All right. But what I should start doing then is with the Tavern Network, we should start adding just pure audio cast to that weekly mailing, and then
multimedia.
You got to fill up Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I mean, come on, what's going on these days?
Theoretically, the mailing goes out once a week. Although there was a hell of a lag between like North Texas and everything else that's going on.
Right.
And we just added another new video channel, The Vlog of Many Things. Don Samora, he is doing interviews with a shit ton of people. My interview just went up, but he interviewed Tim Cast, Wampler. He broke the news on the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum being put up for sale. So, I mean, it's a good channel.
So for those of you who don't know Lou, his little business is called Dandyline Games, and he puts out some great stuff. And so we were talking about having you on the show after because I ran to each other obviously at North Texas. You were at North Texas there and ran a bunch of games and hopefully had a great time. And and so we were saying, yeah, we need to be on each other's show, so we're going to hold you to that. Eric needs something to do with the other 3 days this week, so we need to put us on the show, but. We wanted to have you on just because I knew that you had a Kickstarter coming up, but it's next month. But you're just really fun to talk to because you're always comment section asking questions. And honestly, Lou, you probably asked the best questions of any of those bozos in there. You're actually
the bozos are on right now. You can't.
I know the bozos are right here, and I'm telling you.
We talked about this before. You got to
don't insult the audience.
Yeah, man, I just adore when you guys have people on and, it's all access kind of thing. I always have a million questions and always feel like I'm asking too much. I need to let other people get a word in edgewise.
No, it's fine.
Well, tell us a little bit about some of the games you've written. I'm familiar with. I'm very familiar with the Dare Luck Club because I actually read that rule book and I love to run it someday. I have it. I'd love to run it a game of it. It just sounds so much fun. So tell us about that.
It's
some
right.
of the
I mean,
stuff
it's
that you
not to toot my own horn, but I've never had it fail. Every con I've ever presented it at, we've always had a good time. So, and that says a lot probably about the players that come to the table too. But so yeah, that's my big thing is the Dare Luck Club. So that's got like the rule book for it. It's a Goonies style RPG game.
Cool.
So that's just my ratty personal copy there. And then the adventures for it, we call them triple dog dares. And what they are is they're one map. So you get, and these are available on Drive-Thru RPG. This is the one that's coming out real soon here. It's an amusement park, and these are like sub maps for other little adventures on the back. But you can get some of the maps for these for free on Drive-Thru RPG. But we call them triple dog dares because they use one map, and then they got 3 adventures in them, full-length adventures using that map, just because the maps are so time-consuming to make and costly and whatnot. So there's a museum one, there's a haunted house one, and then into the month here, or I'm sorry, beginning of next month, the Kickstarter for the one I was showing there, the amusement park one, will be shipping. And so that's the Dare Luck Club. And then I do MCC stuff for the Mutant Crawl Classics. So I've got my line's called Classics Mutated. So I've taken adventures that you might have seen in other game systems. I got to figure this camera thing out here. And I kind of port them over into Mutant Crawl Classics, trying to reflavor them, trying to hit the same notes, but have it be a unique tune, if that makes any sense.
Definitely.
So we've got Seekers of the Unknown and the Time Lost Citadel, and then I also put out a little monster book, somewhat similar to the Monsters Compendium, where it has individual monsters. Oh man, left and right is reversed. I got to remember that. Individual monsters on pages, and so you can get the expanded packs for this. I got another one coming out in the fall here, and that's for Mutant Crawl Classics also.
By the way, for us, we're seeing it as it should be. So
yes,
we're seeing it regular orientation. The words aren't backwards. Everything looks fine. So looking good.
All right, very good then. And then I test played at North Texas for the first time, a game that's in development for this coming year, early 2024. And this is an old version of the artwork or whatever, but it's called Movies Till Dawn. The deluxe version is gonna come in a movie tin. It'll be a little journal-sized book that'll go inside the tin. And nice. Instead of using dice, you use playing cards and the different suits to do different things. But you play as B-movie actors, and the adventures are the B movies. So you're trying to make your way through the B movie and try to upstage everybody else. And you get top billing, you get kind of, I guess, the equivalent of experience points, money, and you progress your actor through their career. So,
by the way, everybody that played that I talked to at North Texas loved it, Lou. So I think that you might have a hit on your hands. It's just so that one of the problems with creating games is they're all. First of all, if you do D&D, you've got it's Tolkien. I got Tolkien elves, I got Conan the Barbarian, I got Tolkien dwarves. It's so rare you see a game that just doesn't really have an antecedent in gaming. We're like, okay, yeah, this is just like this, and this is just like that. And I think what's so cool about the movie game is I can't really recall a game like that I can think of. Off the top of my head.
The one that inspired me that's close to it but not quite the same is it came from the Late Show by Brad McDevitt. And the only main difference there is here you're actually playing the actor as a consistent character, whereas in that one it was, I think, like one shots all the time, if I remember right.
And then also the Dare Luck Club, obviously I don't know how long you've had the idea, but I get a lot of Stranger Things vibes from that. I flip through the rule book. You have all the archetype characters. It's really cool. It makes it really easy to play because you're like, I want to play the jock or I want to play the nerd or whatever. You have these. Boom, you have your character right there, and so it's so easy to start a game and to play that. And if you've seen Stranger Things or like you said, the Goonies or any of the kids in peril type movies, you know it's a great starting point. So almost anybody could run a game, I think, of Dare Luck Club.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing, not everybody at the table comes to the table with a library of fantasy books they've read or whatever. But we've all been kids, and we've all, especially those of us, at our age where we're, kind of latchkey kids or whatever, running around till dark. We've had that experience and kind of can riff off of that. So it's immediately tangible to people.
Yeah, I've seen a game of kids on bikes played, which is kind of the same genre, kids get in trouble.
Right.
And while I thought it was interesting, it was very, very much a storytelling game. What would you say? Would you say Dare Luck is more of a storytelling or RPG, a dice game?
It definitely, I would say it's very similar to kind of that second generation of RPGs that came out, like the D6 Star Wars and Shadowrun, where it's got kind of a die pool mechanic. It's definitely narrator led. So your GM, we call it the Grand Poobah, but the GM's going to have the story and the NPCs and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. There are some elements where the players can get some extra agency that you don't maybe see in a traditional game, but it's not anything. It doesn't play anything like Tales from the Loop or Kids on Bikes. Mm-hmm. Both good games, both great games, just different mechanics, different feel to how they play.
Interesting. All right. See, that makes it sound more like it's kind of a game I'll enjoy. Player agencies, for old school gamers is pretty much we're making choices in what direction we're going to go and what shit we're going to beat up. I mean, I guess I've never been one to. I know. Games like Fate and Dungeon World and the rest of those kind of don't hit my sweet tooth when it comes to
I've always found them they're fun to play, but the endings of the game sessions that I've played of games like those, they don't. The ending seems arbitrary or contrived. It just never has the satisfying ending that like a D&D adventure does.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Oh God, what is that one Apocalypse World? There we go.
Yeah,
which kind of like set all the stuff on fire when that was new. God, I played in an online session with Tavis, who we used to know in the OSR, was pretty and Peter Atkinson. I was like, wow, that's what I was like. I was like, wow, I got a chance to play in a game with Peter. What day, what time? I'll bang out from work. I'll make sure I'm available. But Apocalypse World, the session was fun. We had a good GM, and we had strong players. But I didn't like the resolution system because it was so wishy. I like RPGs that show you have success or failure, not the
participation trophies type stuff.
Yeah. All right. So you know what? You didn't come in first place in this combat, but you came in third place, and you get your participation trophy and a cute little hat to go with it, and now you can move on to the next scene, not encounter, next scene. I can't do this, man. I can't do it.
I want to say hi to everyone in chat. I'm not sure. I can't remember how you type into chat from this.
You'd actually have to have a second screen up.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And you'd have to be in.
I'm gonna be lazy tonight, folks. I'm just gonna say hi and thanks for joining us.
You have to talk to those people. We don't like to talk to them, except for you, Lou. We like it when we talk.
Yeah.
Lou, but yeah, these other guys, TXG, Gun, all those guys,
Mr. Gun, they say. You've seen one Mr. Gun, you've seen them all. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they have their own show going on in the comments, which always drives me crazy. You know, it's like, oh yeah, Mike and Eric are doing a show, but we're going to have our own show right here. So you know.
Well,
I was reading where Mr. Gunn was talking about the fumes, and it reminded me. I don't know if you can see the back window here, but so I'm in Indiana, and all that Canadian wildfire. It's like fog out there.
Oh,
I mean, this
boy.
is 5 o'clock at night. And it's almost like whiteout conditions. It's crazy.
I had that a couple of weeks ago. I took a picture from my back window, and it looked like I was taking a scene from Blade Runner. It was like I had to go. I'm not using sepia. I'm not using a sepia filter on my phone. This is the actual color of the air outside my window. It is amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, like today in Texas was gorgeous blue skies. Now the problem is it's 105 degrees here, but I mean, other than that, we don't have the air quality issues. But yeah, I see those pictures, and that's just unbelievable what's going on there. I can't even imagine what it's like in Canada, or does all the smoke just blow down from Canada? And Canada's fine, and it's all hits the northern edge of the United States. I mean, that's awful, man. My wife's going to Minnesota next week too, so I guess she'll hopefully she'll avoid it. But yeah, she might not be able to avoid that. She's probably gonna get a big chunk of that, I'm sure.
Yes, Joseph. No, I'm not into Powered by the Apocalypse solar systems. No, it don't do me no good. No, so sorry. So
yeah, I do. Well, I mean, my gaming is pretty D&D type centric, but I do enjoy a game that's not off the rails, but that's not like other games. That doesn't, have like I used my second favorite game growing up was Call of Cthulhu was always my second favorite game growing up because it's nothing like D&D at all. I mean, there's nothing like it. So I loved Call of Cthulhu, and probably my third favorite game was Top Secret because once again, it's not like Call of Cthulhu, nor is it like D&D. And so I kind of I don't like to mix my chocolate, my peanut butter together. I like to have all the separate flavors. No, it's good. It's good though because you do different things, and I don't like a lot of games that are just a little bit like that game. Well, this is like D&D except for these three things here. I really just kind of now. I do like stuff like Shadow Dark. I think Shadow Dark's cool because it takes D&D in a radically different direction. I do like that kind of stuff. Morkborg's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not a huge Morkborg fan, but I like what it does, which is yeah, it takes, for those who don't know, Morkborg just takes D&D in a totally different direction.
Yeah,
it's DCC does that a little bit. DCC is kind of cool because I'll tell you what, if you go to a con and there's a DCC game, play the game. It's a great one-shot con game. It really is. I don't know how it works in campaign. I know people that have played campaigns. I read it and I don't understand how it can work as a campaign, but I guess it can. But definitely as a con game, it's great. It is a great one-shot.
I tried it as a campaign game, and I think we made it 4 sessions. 4 sessions before Joe the lawyer said, "Fuck this shit."
God, what was his deal? He just couldn't deal with it.
He was playing a wizard,
a mage. Okay, yeah, he's a wizard.
And he's like, "I can't handle this. Either I literally am like the Limp Bizkit, or I destroy the world." I can't handle this. I can't plan anything. See, when I was a kid, teen, 20-ish, D&D was the main game. But for me as a GM, if I wanted to take a break from D&D, I didn't call it a sandbox because we didn't know it was a sandbox. But I did RuneQuest 2nd edition with Pavis and Big Rubble almost daily for a full summer. That was the campaign. And it was great. And then did Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the big ass 1st edition book, and that campaign was going great until our magic user self imploded on the party. Because every player tries to figure out a way to game the system, and his way of gaming the system was I carry flasks of oil, flaming oil, like a Mexican bandito, literally. Two bandoliers across his chest.
One slick set of stairs. That's all it takes.
Then a fireball that went and fumbled and went off at ground zero. Literally destroyed it killed everyone but 2 in the party.
Gosh.
And then they was like, all right, So we're playing D&D next week. Like,
That's it. It's over.
yeah, it's over. Great.
I had a guy play his first D&D game ever, and so I told him, "Look, you're a mage. You're gonna have one spell. You need to carry Molotov cocktails." Oh, what's that? Okay, it does 2d6 die of damage. They're great. If you're a mage, you just throw them after. He's like, "This is cool." So he did just what Eric said. He got the bandolero, got like 10 Molotov cocktails, and he's ready to rock and roll. So they get in the dungeon, they're going along, and he throws his one spell, sleep or whatever. So he doesn't have okay, from now on, you need to throw these Molotov cocktails. So the next opponent they run into is a mage that has a flaming hand spell. And so he happens to hit the mage and fails a saving throw. It's okay. So I said, roll another saving throw. Fails that one. Roll another one. Fails. So these are his Molotov cocktails going off, by the way, as they keep going off. So out of like 12 Molotov cocktails, he fails like 10 saves. So I say, take 26-sided dice. Like he did bad. He had 3 hit points and roll the dice. And so, he ends up with 39 points. I said, all there is a greasy spot. And so he basically caused such a fire they had to leave the dungeon because the smoke was it was ridiculous. So he did, even though he was a first level mage and he kind of did what you're supposed to do, he did learn a bit of a lesson. There's too much of a good thing is not good. Yeah. And so, but he thought it was great. He thought that was a great way to die. His first character was to just absolutely be, the heart of the sun. I mean, just
if you're gonna go, it should be epic, right?
It's like, there's like fires coming out. There's oil and smoke coming out of the dungeon for like days. I said they had to wait in town for like 3 days for the air just to clear out for the smoke in there. But
it was like a Canadian wildfire.
It was a Canadian wildfire in the dungeon. But there is. But I mean, he did what the mage is supposed to do at first level. It's just he just got a little too crazy. Yeah.
So I was telling you, I might want to do some market research. You guys up for some questions?
Yeah. We love questions.
All right.
We like to talk, and we like to talk about ourselves. We're narcissists, so definitely yes.
All right, and if you're in chat, I'll be able to read your question. I'll if I got a response, I'll just have to say it aloud. So first one, and this kind of goes with what we were just talking about. Like, why is it so hard for non-fantasy games to track in the RPG market? Why do you think that is?
You want to go first, Eric? You go first.
No, I'll give you this one first.
Okay, so I think the reason is that fantasy games kind of have this magical non-reality built into them. By that I mean, if you've ever played Top Secret back in 1980 with a group that only played D&D, you've all experienced the effect where they go, okay, we come to the door of the bandits hideout, we kick the door in and we run in. Okay, he has a machine gun and he starts firing and he kills all of you. You're all dead. Every one of you's dead. And you're like, whoa. Wait, what the? and so you can't really. It's harder to play a bullet, than it is a sword. A sword is in magic users and monsters. It's got this veneer of it's not real. You can die and you can come back. Crazy things can happen. Get spells. I think we like that in our role playing games. We like the fact that you're not one and done. Now that's not to say games like Call of Cthulhu aren't popular because obviously they are. But I think people like the whole idea of, I don't have to worry about. There's a way I can come back. I mean, I might die, but I'm, and even if I die, I mean, the last Doro Deep session I had last month. And by the way, our next session is this Saturday. I'm really excited about that. It's our 3rd session. But the second session, they had a player character die at their first level. So the chances he's going to get raised from the dead are pretty much nil. They don't have enough gold. He was a thief, and in Dwarven society, they look at the thieves as kind of like, they're playing an all dwarf party. So, but at that same, and just coincidentally, honestly, at that same mission, they rescued a cleric of another faith, and when they brought him in, they said, "Can we do you a favor?" And the guy's like, "Oh, my brother's dead. Can you raise brother?" So there's always this hope that your characters can come back. I think that helps out fantasy gaming a lot. I think that's one of the things, probably a point against stuff like modern espionage games or superhero. Although superhero games, you don't die either, I guess, right? I mean,
No,
you would rarely die in a
That's the
superhero
same
game.
stuff going for you.
you get the crap beat out of you. But
I think the problem with superhero games, though, is it's very hard to replicate the comic book experience in a game. It really is. Because I played superhero games. We played villains and vigilantes for years. It's very difficult. You're really running a different kind of game. You're not running a comic book. It's very hard to run a comic book game.
well,
because
there's so many variables for the game master,
right.
too.
Oh, yeah.
It's the power balance in a superhero game is you can do that as a comic book writer. You can balance all that shit out by how things play out. Well, you better make sure that Green Arrow is fighting the Putzes as Green Lantern is taken on, because you can do that as the writer. You can't do that as the DM as much.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's very hard to do. It's very hard to do a superhero team, because that's one thing they try to do, and it just does not work, because in comic books, they make very sure that when the Avengers are fighting somebody, that, Black Panther gets the dude who does gymnastics. He doesn't get the guy in the big suit of armor, because obviously Black Panther would try to hit him and he would get hurt. And so it's very hard to do a superhero team in superhero role-playing games, because it just, if you have a guy that's a gymnast and I'm the villain team, I'm going to tell Tank Guy to blow him away first of all. First of all, that guy jumping around, blow him to pieces. I don't want him even hopping around, because he can't protect himself. So we kind of ran our superhero game was actually really fun. We ran it very realistically. My players would kill every villain they defeated. They didn't want them returning. They're like, if we put him in jail, he's really powerful. And so they would they justify it by saying, look, this guy's a menace. And if we put him in jail, he's going to break out. So what we're going to do is we're going to snap his neck here and say he fell off the building. And so they would kill all the. But so it wasn't like it, but it was fun. But no. But back to your question. I mean, that's my opinion. So I just think that fantasy is a kind of a genre that lends itself very well to RPGs, and that it just seems like it's very well for campaign, because you're telling a fantasy story. What do fantasy stories do? They meander along. Lord of the Rings and Thomas Covenant, they go on these journeys and these long trips, and they go down to these dungeons. It lends itself very well to the whole aspect of, we're going to go on this adventure, but you might die, you might not die. Crazy things are going to happen. I don't know. That's just kind of that's what I think.
In chat, there's a lot of folks talking about the physics of it. And I think that's an interesting thing. Is you're dealing with physics that are pretty simple,
Sure, very well,
and catapults and whatnot, and yet. What goes beyond it can just be magicked away.
Magic. And think about like sci-fi. Like, think about a lot of sci-fi games you have, especially Traveler, before there was Star Wars or Star Trek. All the Traveler games I played in ended up looking like Star Trek and Star Wars, because that was the thing that everybody went back to.
I mean, fantasy games as a trope, right? And yes, fantasy fiction is popular, but if you look in your bookstores, I think science fiction is probably more popular. Yeah. Science fiction movies are more popular, right? It's certainly
in comic books, they're way popular than well, used to be anyhow. I guess now maybe not.
All right, but I think what it is fantasy is basically our mythology. So we're able to go back and we're telling these stories of our own mythology to some extent, and you don't have to suspend disbelief as much, because it's fantasy. Anything can happen when you go into science fiction. And we talk about science fiction, and whether it's hard science fiction or soft science fiction, doesn't make a difference. You have to suspend your disbelief. Just like me as a retired cop, when I watch a movie dealing with a police activity, it's like I have to suspend my disbelief. Like, they would never put evidence from a sexual assault into a plastic evidence bag. The evidence, the serological evidence, will rot in hours. You can't, but it's in a movie, right? And I'm already going to pick that apart. Science fiction, we're coming into this with knowledge that is applicable, even if it's something taking place 200 years in the future, 300 years in the future. But when things are taking place in a fictional fantasy past, and with magical powers, like, well, maybe you can fall off a cliff and survive. I don't know. Maybe if you have enough weird hit points, maybe it can happen. So I think there's that. I think that the expectations also for, I don't know, even like modern day role playing, like Top Secret or science fiction, any of that stuff, we take too much of the real world with us. Like I think Call of Cthulhu works better as a 1920s
Yeah, just
uh,
Absolutely agree. I agree with that totally. Yes.
atmosphere because first off, for us, this is mythology. This is our recent mythology. This is gangsters and prohibition and corrupt cops and organized crime, and anything can be happening. And people were maybe a little bit more superstitious, and it fits the genre. Now you take it to today, and what does things start breaking down? Everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's got a phone that, oh, I can take pictures from. Oh, I can pull up the internet. I can search Google. I can do it. Once you hit a certain level of technology, the ability for the GM to
throw those curveballs and whatnot. And,
throw curveballs at you really diminishes, and especially so with science fiction. So why does Star Wars work so well? Because Star Wars really isn't science fiction. Star Wars is fantasy with science tropes thrown into it.
Well, it's space opera. Space opera is totally different from science fiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's why it works.
all right, you guys ready for another one?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so I like publishing adventures, right? But there's always two schools on that, two camps. There's people that love pre-published adventures and people that hate them. So let's start on the one camp. Why do you think some people love pre-published adventures? And do you guys? I don't know if you do or not.
You want me to start with this one, Mike?
Yeah, you start with this one because I have an answer too, but you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think pre-published adventures are like, hey, me as a teenage and 20-ish GM, I loved Dungeon Magazine because I was running games multiple times per week. I couldn't design multiple adventures per week while working full-time and going to school. So having a pre-done adventures is awesome. What I prefer about pre-written adventures, the ones that work for me the best, aren't the big, huge ones. They're the short ones that are very open-ended that I can either take pieces from or take in whole, but I can move stuff around, or I can wiggle it. I can shove the square peg into a round hole and somehow it will fit, as opposed to the ones that if you start moving stuff around, it all falls apart. Because I need an adventure that is flexible for my needs, for my campaign, for my use. So, Mike, that was a quick answer. But
I probably ran everything TSR ever wrote for at least the first 5 or 6 years of TSR existence because I didn't have time to write adventures. I don't know how people had time. I had so much stuff going on. I see these people that had these giant campaigns that they self-wrote back in the 70s and 80s. I don't know how they did it because I never had that kind of time. I was going to school, then college, and staying out drinking and partying. And I mean, just all the stuff you would do, working. I work full time. I just don't have it. But when I take an adventure, what I like is I never run an adventure exactly as written. I will take the adventure and I will say, this is great, and here's what I would have done if I've written the adventure, and then I redo it. Case in point, I'm doing Doro Deep right now. You could ask Greg. I told Greg what I've done. He's like, I can't believe you screwed up my campaign that badly. But no, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that. But I mean, I've changed everything about there to match what I would like the campaign to look like. And it gets to some points, especially with pre-published adventures, all I'm using is the map. I hate drawing maps. I really, really detest drawing maps. I love using map programs that make you a map, or I'll just steal a map from somebody else. But I just don't like making maps. My maps all kind of look the same. It's just like a mega dungeon. Everything goes off into corners. I don't understand why this is over here and that's there. And I just much rather use a pre-published map. But I don't know why people really hate. There's some people that use it as a badge of honor, like I've never played a pre-written adventure. I don't get that. I don't understand why that's a badge of honor. For all I know, all your adventures suck ass. And so maybe you should be, I don't know what kind of a DM you are. So when you say I don't do pre-written stuff, maybe your players have a low tolerance for shitty adventures and you're terrible. I mean, or maybe you're a genius. I don't know. Maybe the stuff So in most cases, a pre-published adventure, especially in the 70s and 80s, we didn't know how to write adventures. We had no nothing before us. I mean, now you've got 40 years of history. You know how to write a good adventure because there's examples. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, there were no examples. All we had was what TSR put out. Literally, that was it. And so we had to kind of go by that. And that's why also I noticed a lot of campaigns that I played in the 70s or 80s suspiciously resembled already published dungeons. Like, oh, so you've got a campaign where you fight a bunch of giants in different parts of, yeah, but it's not like the giant series. These are like stone giants and cloud giants and other giants, you know. So you know, I just don't see the problem with running a pre-packaged adventure, especially if you like to change it up and, you know, make it your own. You should make everything your own. Everything you should use should be your own. Even if you're running a Forgotten Realms campaign, make it your own. You know, it's set in the Forgotten Realms, but maybe this is different, and Elminster's really evil, and this kingdom is, you know, actually this, and, you know, it's run by undead. Well, you know, just change it up enough.
Put your fingerprint on it. Yeah.
I think as you run it, it becomes your own. You know, events change. The history,
that's very true.
The world might be the same, but the future is different. But Lou, you got a question?
Yeah. So Luau, first off, no, you know, I'm not from Hawaii. I get that a lot. Wish I was. It's a great state, but I'm from Indiana, Lafayette, Indiana. Somebody asked before. So I'm an educator. I've been an educator for this will be my 25th year going into education. And every year I've bought a Hawaiian shirt as kind of like a good luck charm at the beginning of the school year. So I have 25 plus Hawaiian shirts because people start giving me some, and at different places people would see me bobbing down the hallway in a Hawaiian shirt and, hey, Lou, you know, and so that's the origin. And I do want to show this shirt off. This I got for Father's Day. Look at this. This has my company logo on it here.
Oh, nice.
The kids got me that one. It's pretty cool.
Yes. That's why I started posing when I posed as Satan for the Midnight Auction. I started using a bottle of Maker's Mark because just like you got a you know, shirts. I ended up getting bottles of booze all the time. Which is awesome. I've got so many bottles of booze. People just hand me like, hey, bad Mike, here you go. I'm like, it worked. I get another bottle of whiskey that I put on my shelf.
That's awesome. One thought on the pre-published adventures. The thing that I really like about them is that it puts all us gamers in this space where we have context with each other. We can be like, hey, you know, have you ever played in Tomb of Horrors? And then all of a sudden, instant, you know, we've got some back and forths, and you know.
We talk about that. You probably heard us talk about the show. That one of the things I miss in our gaming hobby is the fact that when, for those of us who are old enough, like, you know, Eric and I and some others, when the early 80s, when you would get together at a convention or just at a game, you know, a bunch of people that gamed, you'd ask the same questions. You're like, okay, hey, what happened to Tomb of Horrors when you guys went through it? Because everybody went through the same adventure. So you all knew, oh man, what did you do about the demo ledge? Oh my gosh, you know, and you'd all have a story related to that adventure. The same thing with like Village of Hamlet. Oh, did you go you saw Ranus Duval and Grimald? Did they like end up killing you guys, the evil traders at the store? You know, and you just had this common points that you could all focus on and have an hour-long conversation about how each of you handled these dungeons, because at that point that's all there were. And nowadays players just don't have that. And I think Eric and I asked one time what dungeon published in the last 20 years has that kind of familiarity, and I don't think there was really a consensus. I mean,
Barrow Mage might be one of those adventures.
I think Barrow Maze is getting that way. I agree. Yeah. Yes, I think Barrow Maze is going to. It's 10 years old now, and I think you're hearing a lot of people that have actually played Barrow Maze. I think that's approaching that. You know, how did you guys do Barrel Mage, that kind of territory? But for the most part, but that's OSR related. I'm talking like anything like 5th edition, maybe Rapanatic, but
in 5th edition that
I don't know.
And again, I'm not a 5e player, but I know a lot of 5e players, and I don't hear anybody going, "Oh well, Tash's Cauldron, man, that was I'm throwing it out there," or what the first adventure, the one with the dragons.
Tyranny of Dragons,
Horde of the whatever.
Dragon Queen. Yeah, I can't remember what the overall title is.
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody talks about these adventures, and that tells you something too, right? Mm-hmm.
But
it's
the
not
only
just
one
like
I've
they
heard
talk
people
about.
talk about is Curse of Strahd, which is just a retread. Granted, it's a rather large retread of Ravenloft, right? So,
Right.
Yeah, but that's a good example. Look at that. How many times do old schoolers get together and talk about Ravenloft? Okay, what did you do against Strahd? And everybody has a Strahd story. I mean, one of the group I'm playing with right now, one of the guys, John Law, when I met him, I was asking him, hey, what games you play? Oh, Ravenloft. And he had this long Strahd story about how they had defeated Strahd. And, but it made sense because I'm telling them, oh, well, here's what my group did. But, and I think gamers miss that a lot. But I don't know if you can bring that time back because we're lucky. There's so many different things out there. I mean, at the time, all we could do was play TSR adventures if you played pre-published adventures. And look, they went through some dry spots, man. There were some spells when there wasn't really very, you go months like, man, the stuff they're releasing now really sucks, especially during the Dragonlance. Like I don't run Dragonlance. I didn't want to run those things.
Oh,
and
God.
they're crapping up the release schedule by every. Yep, I used them. I just took the maps and said, okay, I'm going to make my own dragon modules or dragon adventures, and that's pretty much what I did. We ran Dragonlance in Forgotten Realms with me doing the dungeons based on the maps because I didn't want to use the plot lines. Plot lines were terrible. So
all right, everybody talks about Fandelver. That's what the
Fandelver is what I was thinking of. Thanks, Gun. That was the intro 5th edition adventure in the box set, the intro box set. That was the adventure there. So a lot of people, that was their first 5th edition adventure. Now I've never even read it. I guess I need to read it sometime. But yes, I've heard Fandelver kind of fits that a little bit, and that people have been through that more than probably any other 5th edition adventure.
So the flip side was the people that hate it, and I think we all kind of said we don't understand why they hate it. But what do you think you could do to help market an adventure to someone who's not a pre-published adventure type person? What do you think would draw them into buying an adventure?
That's a tough one, man. Because I think most people that don't run pre-published adventures don't want anything to do with them, and I don't think they care. I don't know if there's anything you could throw out there that would say, I know you always run your own stuff, but because in a lot of cases, not only do they run their own stuff, their group likes the guy's stuff, or whoever this guy, whoever's running the group, they want to play in his stuff. They don't want to play in a pre-published adventure. So I don't know. There's a lot you can do to convince somebody, except that, hey, this is a really great adventure. This is just my experience. For people who don't run pre-published adventures, they're very confident in their own abilities as DMs. I mean, which is good. I mean, maybe they're really good DMs, but they're extremely confident in their abilities, and they're like, I don't need to run that crap. I mean, I don't know. Did Ed Greenwood ever run pre-published stuff? And probably not. I mean, he's like a genius, and I'm sure Gary didn't run pre-published stuff unless he wrote it. So, well, actually, he did run. There's a couple of things he did run back in the day, but for the most part, if you're that intensely creative, you probably don't need any pre-published stuff. Or like I said, your stuff just sucks ass, and nobody's brave enough to tell you that, God, this stuff's really bad.
Well, these are good questions, though. I mean, they're making us think, because really, if I don't drink beer, right? I'm not a beer drinker. What's going to entice me to have a beer? Well, you're gonna say, this beer is a bit more wine-like, and I know you like wine, or maybe I don't know what notes you got to hit to entice somebody who doesn't like prepackaged adventures, unless you hit on the stuff that isn't the adventure. Like, not only is there an adventure here, but there's also 10 new magic items. There's 4 new spells for arcane casters and 5 new spells for divine casters. And there, and
give them all those kit item type stuff. Yeah,
exactly. You almost have to entice them with the ancillary aspects as opposed to the main piece, and then maybe they'll come into it and go, oh, hey, I can take this and make this mine. All right, and that for those that don't like prepackaged adventures, I don't think that they're people that pass on content, right? They're not passing on.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a book of new classes. Well, maybe I'll check. They're grabbing new content. They're just averse to adventures. Well, again, and I'm sure Wizards of the Coast is figuring this out because they're already trying to find ways to, well, we're marketing to the GM, but we want to sell to the player. So we got to put enough material in here that the player is going to want to purchase this in addition to the adventure that they're not supposed to read. All right, don't read the adventure, but you want this for the 3 new classes and the 3 new magic items. But don't read the adventure that you're going to buy.
So, man, there's 2 different good questions to lead off of this one. Let's do this one first. What are your guys' favorite supplementary items to find in adventure? Like the peripheral stuff, like maps and standees and articles and things that you cut out of the module and hand out to players. What are some of your favorite things you come across?
I used to love the Tomb of Horrors where you got to show your
Art
players
kind
a
of
visual. So when you're going,
all right, that's pretty cool. That is really cool.
It's like when you go into, okay, well, there's this room. Well, you come to this archway, and the archway's got, and there's these sigils in, but you're supposed to, and I want you to figure this shit out, by the way, because there's a trap.
Oh
here.
yeah.
You gotta, whereas
because you screw it up, they're gonna yell at you. Go, oh, you didn't tell me there was 3 glowing globes at the very top.
I know. I said there was. You didn't say they were glowing different. No. So those visuals, as a GM, I love them. As a player, I love them. And the fact that we can do PDF now, which means that you can say, "Hey, print this shit out at home." Like I ran Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I ran. Oh God, the whole. I got through. I guess the Empire, the Enemy Within campaign.
Enemy Within, yeah.
All these handouts that. And listen, this is the 80s, folks. You weren't finding a place to make a photocopy unless you went to your mimeograph at school or your father worked for the phone company. Mine did. And I switched to a commercial photocopy machine. But you had to, reserve it. Like, hey, Pop, you think in the next 2 weeks you can make me copies of the, the character sheets, the goldenrods? And you get home like a stack of 400 you're never going to go through, but thank you. But you're cutting all these things out of your Empire Within because these are handouts you got to give to your players. So I like it. I like those visual handouts if they're important to the story. If they're important to the campaign. Usually they're important because there's something that the player is going to be looking at that they might not. If you read out the clue, that's the riddle, they might not catch it. But when you hand it to them and they can look at it and they can go, oh, the bird is red, the bird is blind, and they're looking at it, they can figure it out better than just trying to remember the clue that you just read to them. Memory is fleeting. So I think there's a lot of great things that you can do with that. I get concerned when they become like stand-ups because not everybody uses miniatures in play, so then it becomes something that half your prospective people go, well, I paid for stand-ups and I don't even use that shit. So but if it's PDF and the cost is whatever you want to, if you want to print it out, it's your cost. If you don't, you don't. I think that kind of balances that out. There, Mike. I took that question. I didn't mean to step on you, Mike.
No, that's there's when I look at an adventure as a DM, what I like about it is I like utility. I like being able to say, like, let's say there's a one of the good things that I'm going to brag on. Greg already has a huge ego. I'm going to have to stroke it some more, but he has these really good pages in the back of his mega dungeons where we have like 100 different scrolls you could find or 100 odd items, and I always like those, and a lot of people do those now. It used to be nobody did those, but now a lot of people do those just random list stuff. I used to love stuff like that because that's something I could photocopy out of an adventure and use that for any other adventure, and it really sparks conversation, and sometimes it just hits a little gear in your head, and you can think of a really great I mean one time I was rolled, there was a chart, and and it had a bunch of random items, and one item was rusted key or something. And so I rolled it. Okay, you're going down this passageway, you find a rusted key. It was a throwaway thing. The party got so invested in that rusted key, man. They're like, we got to find out. First of all, it's in the middle. It's in the middle of the hallway. So I dropped it. I'm thinking, I didn't think about that. I should have put it in a corner. But it's in the middle of the hallway. So I had to make something that fit the dang rusted key because they were so into the rusted key. So I like stuff, to me, that has utility. When a list has 100 different items or 200 different items, I've got a list that I made myself over the years. It's a 200 different random treasures, and they're all like a weird treasure. Like they do something odd. They'll be like like a flute when you play it. Dogs come and serve you for an hour or something. Just weird stuff. I just have these really odd things, and so I can throw that in any adventure and roll 100, 200, 1 to 200, and come up with just something really cool. And sometimes it sparks conversation or. Because the items are really weird too. Like it'd be, a longbow, arrows that only kill Ifriti. So you think, oh, that's stupid, but somebody's going to pay a lot of money for an arrow that, you have to figure out, wait, we could use this could come in handy for, so exactly. So it makes all the items, I hope they make the characters think, or they'll be like a real minor magic item. Like I had one time, and this actually ended up in a campaign. It was an iron spike, but it was +1 to hit. So it's actually a magical iron spike. And I said it. And so the characters find it and it detects this magic. Like, what does this thing do? And so they do identify, like, well, it's just +1 iron spike. And so it says, well, can I use it as a knife? I'm thinking, yeah. And so it does 1 to 4 points damage. Well, this is a low level party. You don't find magic items very much. So that +1 spike got a workout, man. The guy was using it on everything. And it's just a throwaway item, that they forgot about when they got a higher level, like, +1 spike here, throw it in the backpack and
give it to the hireling, not even the henchman. Give it to the hireling.
Yeah, give it to the hireling. He could use that in case he needs to hit a magic item. But that's the kind of stuff I like. I like lists or that you can photocopy and then just use in any other campaign or any other adventure you run. And I think people are doing that more and more often now. I see that in publications where they'll be like, here's 100 random treasures you can find for in a DCC adventure or an MCC or and I don't know, you're probably into DCC, Lou, but they did a really good their annual. They did a DCC annual a few years back, and they had just all kinds of crazy stuff thrown in there. And I don't even play DCC. I thought it was great. There was one whole article was about different magical swords you could find. It had a kick-ass magical sword, I guess, drawn by Kovacs.
Adventures, both MCC and DCC, the official ones are really good about putting in those random charts and giving you a little flair.
Yeah, I will use the hell out of that stuff. That's definitely something I look for.
All right, so the other question, this is getting into some touchy subjects here, but I know this show doesn't shy away from that kind of thing.
No, we like to hit the hard stuff. So.
Come on,
so I'm running up at your con. And I've bought stuff from all sorts of other small publishers, and I realized just how diverse people are pricing things. So like, there's this big 120 page 8.5 by 11 book, and the guy only wants $12 for it. Another guy's got a little pamphlet thing that he wants $22 for. So pricing. What do you feel? And I know it's just an internal feeling, but what do you feel are the right prices? We'll go through a couple different things, but let's start with full color hardback rule book. What's the right price right now?
I think so. Once again, I think you're talking about utility. Like for a one-shot adventure module, I don't think you want to spend over $20 because you're probably only going to use that one time. I mean, unless it's something like, once again, God, Greg's getting a lot of mentions in this show. He owes me. Like one of his mega dungeons. So I think his mega dungeons are priced at $60. And considering that the last one we ran, we took 3.5 years to go through, that's a pretty damn good price. Well, look at the original Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and Dungeon Master Guide. I believe
started 10, 15.
Yeah, I think they went to 10. I think Dungeon Master's Guide was 12. I don't think was it 15.
I remember the DM was 15. The Player's Handbook was 12. And the Monster Manual was 12.
look at the incredible utility you got from those. I mean, how much you use those. And I think nowadays, if you get a rule book, if you can get a $50 or $60 rule book, I think you're doing okay. Because especially if it's a rule book for a game you're going to play multiple times. I think when people get mad is when they spend 50 or 60 bucks on a rule book and they realize they're never going to play this game, or it's not any good, or I don't really like this game, and I got this big hunk of paper here that I'm never going to do anything with.
Yeah.
So I definitely think people need to look at now. There's so many variables in this. I just know this from working at Frog Got Games, and then obviously Lou, you print your stuff up too, so you know how this is. There's so many variables having to do with paper cost, having to do with labor, having to do with art. You have to put all this in and decide what a fair price is for your item based on how much money, time, and effort you put into the item. So obviously, some people. Like the adventures we do for North Texas. God, I thought I had one right here. I did have one earlier. But like the B2.5, 1.5. I mean,
kind of like this sort of size.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, just like the ones that Tom does. Those are. You're probably putting in, fair amount of time and effort. You have to pay art on those. I mean, some of the art pieces we paid for the B 4.5 were expensive. We had a cover, a back cover. We had interiors. I paid for the interiors, and I paid for a 2-page spread there out of my own pocket because I got to keep the original art. But you're putting in a pretty good amount of money. That's why we charge $25 to $30. Actually, the price of the modules of those are $30, which is a fair price for how much time and effort we're putting into those. Even those. They were labors of love, and Tom and Charlie donated their time and effort, but still, I mean, it costs money. I mean, everything costs money. So I don't. If somebody has a digest, I think digests. I'm always a little surprised that a digest costs over $20 because those aren't as much to print. And yes, I know that, especially if you have a lot of original art in there, the digest can get expensive. But I don't want to pay more than $20 for a digest.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, I think it all comes from where it's coming from as the indie publisher or whatnot. If you are an indie publisher where you're trying to make this your occupation, this is going to be your living, your pricing of stuff is going to be higher, generally speaking, than somebody who is a hobbyist who just wants to get their stuff read, cover their cost, and to get it out there.
Yeah.
And then you got people that are
Joseph Carter made a good point. I wanted to talk about how also the Dungeon Crawl Classics is those usually cost what $50-$60 each. The WotC books are shitty because everybody says they fall apart, which is true.
Yeah.
That's something else you look at. So, for instance, like I'm gonna let's compare because nobody asked us to Tales of the Valiant with Shadow Dark because I just think this whole Kickstarter thing was fascinating. The fact that Cobalt Press and Wolfgang are giants in the industry, and Kelsey beat them. I'm not going to say beat. I mean, she wouldn't say that. I know she wouldn't, but she made $360,000 more than them, and her items cost a fraction of the cost of the big giant Tales of the Valiant books. Now, Wolfgang is going to put out some big giant books. They're going to be slick. They're going to have wonderful artwork in them. They're going to look incredible. But do you really want to pay $100 for a rule book? Is that? I mean, I guess as long as you play the game a lot, you're getting your money's worth. But I'd far much rather pay $30 to $40 for a rule book, and and forego some of the super slickness and kick-ass art and all the great. I mean, it just has to look good. I mean, the second. I mean, first edition D&D books usually look terrible, but that's just everything looked terrible back then.
Right.
But the 2E books looked fine, and they were like $20 or $18. That's the kind of thing I want. It doesn't have to look great; it has to look fine, and it has to hold up. Like you said, it can't fall apart, and it's got to be something I'm going to use over and over again. And I'll pay. Back then $20. That's probably what $45, $50 today. That's definitely something I would pay for just to get something that's worth.
And just to throw this out there because we're talking about final cost and we threw WotC into the discussion. So, WotC, if you're buying directly from them a pre-orders now, you have to get the D&D Beyond bundle. So you got to pay They increased their price by $10 for all the hardcover books, and now the bundle makes it an extra $10. Now, PDF or digital content, it has a sunk cost initially because you have to generate the content. But once the content is generated, there's no additional cost to make additional copies. Not even the cost of a photocopying piece of paper. So what annoys me, and if you're a publisher that does this, don't take it personal. But if I see that the PDF is $10 and the printed book on drive-through is $20, and if I want the PDF and the printed book, it's $30, or I'm getting a small discount, $28, I feel like that's pretty much an FU. Now, if you're saying, hey, get the print, we're going to charge you $2 for the PDF, I'll live with that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do.
That's free money for you anyway. Most people are going to go, yeah, sure, I'll take it. But when you want basically full value for that PDF, and then don't get me wrong, the PDF has value, and I pay good money for PDFs. But if I am buying the physical product and there's a digital version of that available, it should be thrown in my opinion, with the physical product.
Frog Games did that for years. I mean, that was Frog Games was known for doing that. That's what we did. If you bought a physical copy, you had a PDF, and that was just something. I don't know why they started or why we started it, but we started it, and people loved it, and it just became something like, yeah, if you buy this. Matter of fact, I think we might have influenced other publishers in that regard. That, hey, Frog God gives you a free PDF whenever you buy one of their products, and
right.
I think some other companies followed suit with that, because well, yeah, you're right. I mean, how can we justify charging for it when they're giving it for free? So okay, Lou, you better ask this question. Gun is being very, very pushy here.
Tell me your answer.
Scientific Barbarian, I love it. It's Jim Wampler's magazine, and quick side story, crazy thing. I'm with my home group. We're getting ready to play an MCC game that a buddy of mine's running. And so I'm sitting down at the table, rolling my character because we're playing that night. And I get a phone call out of the blue on my cell phone. I pick it up, and it's Jim Wampler. Right there, I'm right in the middle. Man, it's just so surreal. Yeah. So I've recently written an article. I think it's what is his current volume 6? I think 5 or 6 that's in there. But it's a great magazine. Lots of odds and ends. Really good content from a huge variety of writers. I mean, some of the North Texas favorites are in there. Ian and Rocky are in there all the time, and good stuff.
No, yeah, I'm a super big fan. I know Eric is too, of fanzines and digests and all that. So I love that stuff. I mean, I'm a huge digest guy, and I can't help but brag on this because it was just so amazing. If I can find it, hold on. Can I do this with my headphones?
Whip it out, Mike. Whip it out.
This was the North Texas Digest that the Independent Publishers Union did for us.
Yeah.
It's a hefty 46 pages, and it's just I just
you
love
gotta
these
show them the art.
Oh my gosh, it's
yeah.
It's just chock full of goodies, and the artwork's great, and there's some they take some shots at me, of course, and because there's a let me find the page. There's a picture of
there
a
it is.
Suspicious devil type and all those characters. By the way, those are all people. Those are all Skeeter and Levi and Ian and Rocky are crawling on my head, and so my brother's laying there with his Speedo on the altar and stuff. But no, this is just, they did a great job, and this is $30. I mean, so yeah, I said that digest should only be about 20, but if you're going to do something this slick and beautiful, you could do 30, and plus it was for back the con. But I really like digest a lot because they have that whole aesthetic of DIY aesthetic, and it's just got everything in the kitchen sink thrown in there. There might be an adventure in there. There may be some monsters. There's probably some new spells. So yeah, those are probably some of the best bang for your bucks you'll ever get. Or especially the Scientific Barbarian, especially, is one of those, definitely. The Fantastic Geographic that the Silver Belay guys put out is really good. Gosh, who else puts out digest?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. And Yeah, anybody that puts out those really digests that
Back
have
to basics. Got to mention Back to Basics. That's
basic.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
top dog as far
Tom.
as that stuff goes.
Yeah, it's Tom's stuff. There's always something useful in one of Tom's little digests. So,
So I got a question riffing right off this. So I kind of pulled these up before. So you get all these digests, right?
Yeah.
And what do you do with? I mean, they're great.
Oh, they're
they got great
everywhere.
content.
No.
But what do you do with them? They disappear into your other books.
Well, they don't disappear.
When you want to run something out of it, it's like where did that?
You buy a little plastic. I would run downstairs and get it, but I don't want to flash show. I have these little plastic boxes that are so big, and they're so tall, and there's a lid on it. It snaps on. The digest fit in there perfectly, and then you snap the lid on, and they pile up on each. Okay, I got to get it. You guys vamp for a while. I'm gonna go get I'm gonna show you what I have.
So the second part is how do you like organize them to where you like know where stuff is so you can utilize all the great stuff. You don't.
I don't. I will come across them months later and go, "Oh shit! I was halfway through reading this, and I forgot to continue reading this." And and years ago, I forget who it was. Somebody actually kickstarted a bunch of boxes specifically for digest-sized zines, cardboard boxes with. I you know what? I want to say that this might have been Brave Halfling before Brave Halfling went off the charts, but I'm not sure who did it. But these boxes are great, and I'll be honest with you, they're empty. They would work perfectly for this. I've got nothing in them. They're stacked on one shelf in a corner, out of the way, and my zines are everywhere. I mean, literally, I could probably reach down to either side and start pulling out like zine-sized material because it is everywhere.
So I want to show you. This is what I store my zines in. And I would like to thank the late Mike Carey, one of my best friends who passed away a few years ago. These are perfect for digests. So you can see let's see what I got in here.
By the way, Mr. Gunn says that, and this is before you brought this up, Mike, that you are Conleying.
I did not talk about LARPs. I got some really old, valuable North Texas digests in this one.
Wow.
But as you see, they fit in perfectly. They're the exact right size for this. And here's the great thing about these. I believe these were sold at a hobby store, like maybe Hobby Lobby, something like that.
Okay.
And you put the lid on. The lid snaps on, and they stack. So each one holds. And I love these. I use them for all my digests. They're great. I don't know if you guys were talking about the utility of the utility of them. Is something different though, because you're right. It's hard to. I don't know if I ever find something I like in a digest. I do the same thing I do with the module. I just run a photocopy of it on my printer and just bring it in session if I need.
By the way, Mr. Gunn says Conley for the verb, meaning when you dig through a pile of books on your desk or the shelf behind you to pull just the right thing.
That's a Conley.
Yep. That's the Conley.
I don't mind being compared to the great Rob Conley. You're not insulting me at all.
I wonder, a lot of these guys that put out these digests or the zines, I mean, they do anthologies of them or collections of them. I mean, what do you call that? It's not an anthology. Anyhow, I wonder, do they index them? I've never bought one to look, but that would be a great idea, is to like index what you've done so that you get a reason to buy that one so that you have an index to all the other ones anyhow.
It's a great. I know that Tom did a really good a beautiful, excellent compilation of his Back to Basics. It's wonderful. I don't think he indexed that one though. I don't.
No, it wasn't.
Omnibus.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you, Joe.
And look, you can carry it around at a convention, not look nerdy or anything.
Oh yeah, it's my lunchbox. So sweet.
All right, I've got questions all night. So when you get sick of them, say, okay, let's move on. Otherwise,
keep rolling. We're not even close to being.
All right. So this will go way off to a different topic area here. When you game master, do you prefer to game master with a screen or without?
With, definitely for me.
I like the half screens. Yeah,
half screen.
Well, look, I make all my rolls for the characters except the ones I don't. So whatever that means. But I know some people pride themselves. I make all my rolls in front of the characters. Well, if your players are smart, they're going to figure things out if you make all your rolls in front. I mean, if you say, well, I'm going to roll the mage's saving throw, and you roll and you get a 3, and he goes, oh, he made a save. They're going to say, whoa, hold on. This guy's got some shit going. There's something going on here. I'd rather keep it a mystery. You roll, and okay, he made a save. You have to have implicit trust in your DM, just like you have trust in your players too. I mean, you can't always see everybody's roll across the table, right? When they roll and they say, oh, I got a 13, I just hit him. You got to go with it. You can't just say, whoa, don't move. I'm going to walk over there and look at your dice because I don't trust you. No, you never say that. So you got to trust your DM behind the screen. He's hopefully not going to screw you over.
Hopefully.
If he is, then don't play with him. Well, you should be playing with the DM that's going to screw you over. Come on.
But here's the thing. Like if I'm running face to face, it's going to be at a convention these days. I don't have an OSR group by me in New York. So if I'm running games that aren't online, it's face to face, and that means we're at a convention. I like the low screen, like the latest Swords and Wizardry one that Frog God did, because that is great. If you're sitting at the table, your players can still see your face while you're hiding stuff.
Yeah,
which is perfect. But even for me, if I'm running a game at a convention, if I'm sitting like 1% of the time. I generally stand for the whole session so I can walk the table, so I can get the eye contact with my players. But if I want to roll those dice, I'm rolling it behind the screen, unless it's one of those moments where it's like life or death. Oh, well, we'll put this D20 out on the table because live or die, that gets people excited. When you go behind the screen, miss. People go, really miss? Or was you just trying to save something? Or if you're behind the screen and you're like, oh, that's a hit. Oh, 6 points of damage. You only had 3. Well, people kind of go, yeah, but so-and-so just, was being an asshole before. Are they being killed off because they're an asshole, or are they being killed off because they're in a dice? That's out. Those dice are out in public. I agree. But there's a lot of stuff that has to be behind the screen. Wandering encounters, hide in shadows, move silently, find
your door check.
Well, see, I think saving throws have to be behind the screen too, because you don't want your players to know what advantages or disadvantages monsters or evil guys have, because maybe they've got a spell on that's +4 versus spells, and they've got a ring of protection on, so it's +7. You don't want to let the characters, like I said, like I was saying, you don't roll 4 in front of them and say, oh, he made a save, because then they're going to be like, whoa, something's going on here. You don't want him to just, he made his save. They'll figure it out if he keeps making his saves. They're like, this guy's making a lot of saves, man. We better try another tack. But if you roll that kind of stuff out on the table, and obviously I think you always have to roll thief stuff under the back of the table. For instance, find traps. It doesn't do any good to roll find traps. Right. I got a 75% chance to find traps. Okay, and they roll an 80. Oh, I guess you didn't do it. Well, they know it. You can't do it in front of them. You have to do it behind the screen. And my favorite line of all time as a DM is, "You think you didn't find anything?" I tell them that all the time, and they're like, that's you don't think you found anything." So you get them paranoid, because you don't think you heard anything, or you didn't hear anything, but you don't know, So I think there's times to roll behind the screen, times to roll in front. I know some people really pride themselves on they roll every roll in front of the players, but I don't know. I don't roll that way. I don't roll that way, but I like to keep a little mystery in the game and kind of have it back there. Like, you don't really know. I'll tell you one thing I do that my characters love is I track. So I have, before we play, I've got this is modern technology at its finest. I go on Word and I print out all the monsters and their stats and all their hit points. And so I keep those sheets with me so I don't have to write stuff down during the game unless it's a wandering monster. I have all the monsters they're going to run into. And so when they're in a big, long battle and they're swinging, this guy, he's barely alive. The wizard's demon is barely alive and he's still coming at you, but he's bleeding everywhere. Okay, I do my sling and I sling it and I do 2 points of damage and I'll turn the sheet around and say, he had 2 points. You got it. They're like, they're like, so they love that. They love where they're like, oh my God, we're about to die.
It's one of those adventure paraphernalias that's kind of nice from some of those old modules, is that list of all the creatures and their hit dice and all that. Those are
I like
nice
that. That didn't last. TSR did that for a while, and I guess they did market research and didn't like it because they stopped doing that. But I think there was a while they did that, right? Was it their basic modules, or I can't remember? But they did do little checks, like little, there'd be little check boxes and stuff. And I can't remember what line they did that on, but maybe they didn't like everybody marking their beautiful modules up or something. I don't know.
I used to write in my modules all the time.
Oh yeah, I did too. I wrote in the margins all the time. Yep.
Back in the day, we used to have this thing, and I don't know if it was just to our little gaming group or what, but we called it the screen effect, where if you put the DM screen up, like DM screen down, you could speak eloquently, you could charm the crowd, you could come up with every word in the dictionary. You put the screen up, and then all of a sudden, you see this. It's kind of bluish. You guys ever witnessed that?
I never had that problem, but
no. I mean, for me, I had that problem running my first con game, because it was like, oh shit, these are all strangers, and I don't, and that's all. We all have that fear to some extent, right? Because your home group, whether that is face to face or online, is the people that you game with. You know what they're going to do, and when you're playing with a convention group, generally speaking, you don't know what they're going to do, and you have to either embrace that and go with it and enjoy it, or it's going to make you miserable GM at that table because they'll take you for a ride. I enjoy the ride. I enjoy where this random group of people is going to take me, because it makes it like my own gaming group. I can generally figure out they're going to either do A or B, and I can prep that they're not going to do C. And you get that random group, you're like, they went to F. And X wasn't even on my potential list.
Or I love it at con. I love it at cons when they split the party, because the whole point of a con game is you're compacting an adventure in this little time period, either 3 to 5 hours. Don't split the damn party in a con game, because I don't have time to run back and forth.
Exactly.
And so I've had it happen. I hate it, but I'll let it roll. But I've got a pretty good system where I can go back. I go back and forth, turn to turn to turn, and then. But I was just thinking of one because I thought of a con game. There is one time I used rolling behind the screen to my advantage. Just one time I ran B1 at North Texas one year, and a guy who shall remain nameless because I can't really remember his name. He had a couple drinky poos before the game, and he was being extremely obnoxious during the game. And the only time I've ever had this happen, and so he not only managed to split the party, he managed to triple split the party. So he said, hey, let's go off and do this. And so 2 people went and did this, and he would do it. And then those people that went, they all wanted to go one way. He said, no, I'm going this other way. And so he's off on his own. 1/3 of the party is doing something. Another third is doing another thing. So I fucking killed him, because I just, So in my defense, he ran into a room that had like 5 ogres, and he's first level, or 5 orcs in first level. And so they basically destroy it. You're dead. And so I said, do you want to roll up another character? You want to? And he goes, no, man, I got to go to bed. And he took his sheet and he was drunk. He was loaded drunk. So I have to say I used the screen to my advantage, because those orcs all hit that round. Every single one of them was just, 30 points of damage, your first level fighter. Sorry, man, you're gone. But kind of what was it? Gary Gygax, blue bolts of lightning from the heavens hit you and destroy you. So I did it for the good of the party. I want to tell you that I did it for the good of the party, the good of everybody else's enjoyment. Because
of course,
one person can screw up. If it's a campaign game, it's one thing, but if it's a con game, there's other people came to have fun, and they don't want one guy in there, screwing things around. And I've only had it happen a couple of times, but yeah, it's really disruptive when it does happen. when somebody gets in your con game and decides that, yeah, we're going to do things my way and we're going to go do this and that, because people are generally pretty passive in con games. They just want to have fun. And so sometimes you get that loudmouth in there and they end up directing the party. They're like, we're going to go do this, this, this. And nobody really wants to argue with the guy at a con. So they're like, yeah, we'll go do that. And, it's probably not the right thing to do or the best thing to do, but,
It can happen in your regular group, though. And then you
but I just tell those MFers to shut up and sit down, or they know what's going to happen if they screw. Believe me, in my group. So I told her about my group before. We have 5 people now. 3 of them are my original D&D group from 1978. So we've been playing together 40 something years. So they know if they start screwing around, retribution is quick and it's going to be painful, because these guys know, I've known this guy for 40 years, and if I start screwing around, this guy is going to F me bad. I mean, and they will, like, if you go start doing that, I want to go in this direction. We're all going in this direction. No, I'm going to go over here. Okay, but you know what? You're going to be in big trouble. And they'll, oh yeah, I'll hang out with you guys. You're right. That's because they know each other. They've known each other 40 years, and they know that retribution can be very ugly, quick, ugly, and painful. So TXG's leaving because I'm Rob Conley now.
Oh, you Rob Conley'd it, man. You robbed it.
On the GM screens, with different systems, there's different things on them, and I've ran into a couple systems where the screen is about useless. Name like 6 things that you got to have on that screen.
Nothing.
You just made me laugh because poor old Judges Guild. Judges Guild put out some of the worst screens of all time. They have a traveler screen that has errors on it, and their chivalry and sorcery screen has all kinds of errors on it. So I would say number 1, don't have errors. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely to hit, right, Eric? I mean, you got to have to hit. You got to have.
Hey, you know what? I'll be honest with you. If I have a GM, if I'm using it, it's because I have paper clipped index cards to the other side with information that I find useful. Which usually, when I was running my old home campaign back in my college days, that was all my index card of every PC. So I had I didn't have to ask for saving throws, or I could just look, and I didn't look at the combat charts from that. We had the combat wheel. Remember that?
Yes.
You playing Marvel? What were you?
No, we had the combat wheel for D&D. It was in one of the Dragon mags.
Yeah.
You cut it out, and then you glue it and all that. Yeah, you had to glue it to like cardboard.
That's right.
And then you had to spray it with like a laminate. Oh, it was fun putting that shit together. But I really DM screens for me.
Well, so I like saving throws on there too.
That's really what it comes down to.
Saving throws are good. To hit numbers are good. And sometimes I like really obscure stuff that you don't want to really look up in the book. Like I like for instance, when I play D&D, I like to look at the item saving throws, because I do make items have to make saving. If you fail your saving throw,
right,
your items have to make saving throw. And that's not something I have memorized or that I just have marked perfectly. So turn charts for clerics. I like the turn charts for clerics. I'll look at those. Especially the D, because I'm thinking I'm right now I'm using the 2E D&D screen behind my castle wall, because we're playing 2E, but they have a really good list of weapons and damage modifiers. See, a lot of this stuff we have written on our sheets, though. Nowadays, character sheets are so amazing. I mean, you have pretty much everything you need on your sheet. And so that's what I'm saying. The DM sometimes has to have stuff that's really not going to be on your sheet, like item saving throws. That's one thing. I like the effects of like combat effects, because that's not something I know either. Blinded, I look up like blinded, or you're prone, or you're behind 25% cover. Is it +2 I don't remember that stuff, so I like to have that on the screen where I can see it really quick. And so if I know the bad guy is behind a tree and it's dark and he's more than 100 yards away, I can do +2, -2. I can do that pretty quick. So
one thing that I find a lot of games forget to put on their screen that I'm always looking for is stuff like time and distance, like how many seconds is a round, how many rounds is a turn. What's the
interesting?
How far can a horse travel? How far can a man travel? All that kind of stuff. And that's why it's so hard to find in the rule books too. Usually,
yeah, it's stuff that's not easy to find because everybody has. So my brother Robert, he does everybody's character sheets. He's OCD or ADHD. He's something. Anyway, he does everybody's character sheets, hand writes them every session. He updates them, hand writes them. I don't know why he does it. He's always done it for years. He loves doing it. So he puts all this information on the sheet. Like they have all the information. They have what the spells do. They have everything. There's nothing you need to look up in a book on the sheet. So I'm left. He doesn't do anything for me. So I'm the one that has to come up with it. I have to figure out my own stuff. And so I have the AD&D 2E spell cards, which are actually, those are really useful. Yeah, I love that. So I have the spell cards there. If I'm smart, I pull them before the session, so I know what spells the bad guys are going to cast. I can just look them up real quick. I try honestly never to look at a book during a session, and I was really proud of the fact that I ran BX for the 10 or 12 years I ran a game at North Texas. I haven't run it in a few years, but we only looked in the book two times. One time was to find the distance of a spell that I didn't know offhand. Another time was to find modifier for a missile weapon, and that was it. I mean, that's why one reason I love BX too, though. But I try to keep everything where you don't have to be, because nothing slows a game down more than having to flip through the pages of a book and look for something. So I like to be prepared, and if a DM screen is doing its job, it has most of that information on the screen. Nowadays though, everybody brings their laptop. I mean, I bring my laptop, and so you can just put stuff in there and look it up real quick. So,
let's see here, where to go from here. This will probably be a pretty quick one. Are there any RPGs? And I know the answer, but are there any RPGs you play 100% rules as written?
I don't even play what I've written. Rules as written.
We don't even play board games rules as written. I don't even do board games that way anymore.
Continual Light. I have house rules that go beyond what's in there.
I was gonna say, what is that? That's only like 3 pages, 4 pages.
Yeah,
how many pages is that?
4 pages. 4 pages.
Well, it's like here, and they're basic house rules, but it's like, everybody gets maximum hit points at first level. All right, not no big deal. But hey, if you choose to play a human, you can take your lowest score and make it a 15, because the demi humans will have little things. But when I run it at a gaming convention, players roll up the characters at the table. And these are little things that aren't in that 4 pages of rules. And by the way, Mike, I got to ask you, do we still have more swords in which we light? Because I might need more.
Oh, yeah, I got a stack of it.
All right, I might need you to send a stack.
I got lots. Oh, yeah.
Here's SpireCon. So I have a
sure. I got
I'm sorry to derail things here, but I just remembered, whatever did you decide on Continual Light?
Continual Light's still on hold. As Wizards of the Coast is still on hold on what they're doing with the SRD 3.1. I can go through. Here's the deal, right? Because I am not a lawyer. I'm not even a rules lawyer. I don't want to go through Continual Light and try to find the 3.1 isms that are in there that wouldn't be covered under the current OGL or Creative Commons. So until they decide what they're doing with the 3.1 SRD, it's still on hold with my proof copy sitting on the desk next to me, because it's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I could put it out, but you don't want to put it out and literally crap. Oh well, we're going to withdraw that. I mean, technically the OGL still exists, right? I'm pretty sure it won't at some point, or at least not as we know it. So I want that security. They haven't gotten there yet, so it's on. It's on hold. Now, I've actually been asked by people who want to do material supporting it. I was like, listen, there's the changes between what is currently out there and what's going to be known as Continual Light. It's not going to be known as Swords and Wizardry Continual Light, because that's Matt's IP. That's Matt's trademark and trade dress, and but it's going to be known as Continual Light. I got the new logo. The cover looks awesome. I love it. There are no changes to the rules themselves. They may changes some of the terms, but there's no changes to the rules. It's 100% compatible with what's already out there.
So
if you want to do material for it, feel free. And by the way, because it's all open content, and I like telling this little story. Somebody did a total rewrite of the rules, total rewrite, and I get no mention except in like the OGL section 15 mention. So if you don't read that, you think that this person made a whole new game, and then somebody, and I quote this, somebody found my rules and asked why I copied this guy's rules.
Oh, contrary.
And I was like, imitation is the best form of flattery. So I took it on that note. But
or thievery.
If you give thanks to like, hey, listen, I liked it. Yeah, based on it would have been fine. It's not required, obviously, by the OGL, and I like people using it. I'd love to see somebody take those, I don't know, dozen and a half pages and turn it into a science fiction game, like White Star, just smaller. But I mean, I was just like, wow, that really hurts. Well, this guy Tenkar made a copy of your game. Like, no, dude.
Well, back to your rules as written question, Lou. I think it's funny because there's a lot of really, just like people pride themselves on, I've never run a pre-published adventure. They like to pride themselves on, I play the rules exactly as Gary Gygax wrote them in 1978. And so I've sat down to those games before, and I get immense pleasure and humor out of seeing all the ways they've diverted from the rules. Because nobody, no fucking anybody plays exactly by the rules. I don't care what they say. They don't. We play exactly by the rules. Well, do you use armor class first weapon? Oh, well, no, we don't use that. Oh, okay. Do you use no, we don't use that. Oh, do you use
the collar at the table?
No, we don't use that. And it just goes down the line. It's like, and pretty soon you're like, okay, you've homebrewed the system. No, we're playing rules exactly as written by Gary. No, you're not. Because Gary Gygax didn't play the rules exactly as he wrote them. He said that many times. And people that sat in his game said that too. He played his own version of D&D, the one he wanted to. The AD&D was written so they could have uniformity to run convention games. Yes, that is that was his thing, and the only reason AD&D was created was to have conformity in conventions. All these guys ran their own rule sets. Tim Kask ran his own rules. Gary ran his own rules. They all ran their own rules when they ran rules. They didn't use the AD&D handbook or AD&D handbook. And that was for you and me. That was for us. And that was so when we went to a convention, there wouldn't be 15 people saying this is the distance of a magic missile spell. Here it is in the book. It says 120 yards or whatever.
That was the only game I can think of that I played pretty much as is out of the book was the old, I don't know if you guys remember the old Mayfair games, DC Heroes.
Oh, yeah.
And it had,
it's
not that it was perfect, but it had this system where everything was kind of interlocked with the APs and the logarithmic chart. So I always felt like, man, if you just change one little thing, then it all kind of unhinges. So, but yeah.
When you approach one of the people that say they play raw, you can unhinge them by suggesting they don't too. So be very careful when you point out that they're not playing the rules as written, because they will get in a 15-hour long argument with you about how, well, this is actually the way it was when Gary was looking over it first, and then, and it's actually more. This is the better. It just goes on. So nobody. Look, the whole point of D&D is to homebrew it, to make it to where your group likes it. If your group likes combat more, change up the combat rules. If your group likes spells more, make it. I mean, give every spellcaster 3 spells at first level. I don't care. It doesn't matter what you're doing. No, there's no. Well, I was going to say there's no WotC police to kick in your door, but apparently there are Tenkar police that'll kick in your door. But for the most part, you're going to be able to play at home however you want. So don't worry about it.
So you'd mentioned board games. One of my questions was on those nights when your group doesn't show up, and I know with a virtual group that's a different thing, but did you have a fallback board game that you pull out and say, oh, we'll play this board game?
Yeah, well, Mike, you want to do this or?
Well, I'm about to say we had fist fights over Risk, so we stopped doing Risk.
Oh, you too?
Little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
And so
used to-
that went
yeah.
out the door. So we would try to play. What we really would have loved in the 70s, 80s is more cooperative games like they have now, because it was so cutthroat in our group. It was ugly. So we would typically not play board games because it got really ugly. And there was not very many cooperative games back then, but I seem to remember there was a couple we played that were. I'm trying to remember what they were. Like, one was something like something about the Titanic. It was an old board game that came out in the 70s, and you had to get off the Titanic.
Did it have the dial? Yes. So I had that one.
We played that because you weren't screwing each other. You're just trying to get off the Titanic and whatever. And we also played Awful Green Things from Outer Space. We liked that one too, because that wasn't necessary. I mean, yes, it was every man for themselves, but you weren't always trying to screw each other. And it came more down to what cards you pulled, whether you win or not. You weren't really screwing over each other. It was more like, hey, you got your aliens over there, you're fighting. I got my aliens over here. Let's see who wins and gets out of this alive. But
all right,
there's so many good games. The great thing about now is I think every game I have in my closet right now is a cooperative game, because it's more fun, I think, to put when I play with my grandkids. I don't want to beat my grandkids in a game. That's not any fun. Now, they love it when they beat me in a game. They think that's great. But it's more fun when you have a cooperative game and you can all fight the zombies together, or do whatever, and you all win. It's like awesome. We all won. So
yeah, Risk was a bad one because and it usually with us, we pulled out a game if we didn't have the full group. Right, so it's like, all right, we don't have the full group, and that usually meant we had 3 or 4 players. So things we did play, obscure one, Amoeba Wars.
Oh yeah, I've got Amoeba Wars.
That was actually a lot of fun. But usually, and of course, Talisman.
Yes, that's the one we did.
But we also
Talisman. Yeah, Talisman's a good one.
We also played games that played quickly and were less serious. Because they were less serious and they played quickly, you could play multiple rounds and nobody got butthurt. So we played Nuclear War and Chaos Marauders from
never heard of that one.
Games Workshop with a card game.
What's it called again?
Chaos Marauders. And it was the Games Workshop art of the orcs and the goblins. It was set in a Warhammer setting, and it was a lot of fun. And usually that game ended with people laughing because whoever won, somebody died a miserable fucking death. So those were the games that we tended to play, because anything that was like too technical became too competitive. And in the early years we would do some wargaming, but wargaming was all one-on-one. And that, so you weren't going to break up a group and do 2 sessions of one-on-one.
We would do squad. We would pull squad leader out every once in a while, because
that was
very well. The first few scenarios, okay. Once you get to tanks, you can't play anymore. But we would do a squad leader scenario real quick, or we would do ogre's always great to run. Okay, you're the ogre. We're all going to fight you, and you, of course, you didn't play that rules as written either, because the ogre would win every time, so you had to finagle that. But that you could play that with more than one person. The ogre game, you'd have, I'm ogre, and you guys are all okay. You guys got to decide what you're going to do to fight me. I got to get across the board, so we would do that sometime. Ogre was fun. There was some really good pocket games out that time, like the old. I can't remember. There was a few we played a few.
Dr. Lucky.
Yeah, stuff like, well, we didn't play. Well, I'm talking about more like late 70s, early 80s. We played those micro games, I guess they called, right, Eric? Not the Games Workshop. Who put those out? Steve Jackson? Not Steve Jackson.
Steve Jackson put out Ogre, GEV, and a bunch of Star Wars, and TSR.
Yeah. TSR had the little cool pocket games too. Yep. We played Vampire a few times. Vampire was fun. Because you could play that really quick.
The problem with those games that you couldn't play them outside because the pieces would blow away.
It's too hot to play anything outside in Texas.
Picking up the little chits, you just couldn't get your nails under them and stuff. They're so thin.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of fun. Ogre was a fun diversion, as was GEV. But that was usually stuff that we played before a session. You'd play an Ogre session, as you're killing time, as players are running late, you play a little Ogre. And then it's like, all right, now we can actually play into the real game. But, you had to find diversions that weren't going to, like with Ogre, you always knew the Ogre was going to win. It was just how long you were going to delay it to get where it was going to go, or how much damage you did. But when you didn't want to do really competitive games like Risk, because it became whoever was
blood.
losing was miserable, whoever was winning was gloating, and it did not make for a good game session.
No.
A shout out Joseph Carter. He's talking about the Forbidden Island and Desert and Sky. Those games are amazing. They play so fast. They're cooperative. It was really cool.
Oh yeah, I have Forbidden Desert. I don't. Grandkids. I think we played it one time. It was fun. That was a fun game. Yeah, I love the new cooperative games. There's a Western game. It was called Spurs. It's been reissued, and I can't remember the new name of it. My kids love that game because you each decide. There's all these different conditions of victory depending on what kind of character you play. You can play a lawman, a bad guy, a rancher, a bounty hunter. So whatever you play, you choose what you're going to play, and then you just go about the board and do your own thing. And the only time you interact is if you're a bad guy, you try to rob a bank, and then the guy that's a lawman has to try to catch you, or the bounty hunter tries to catch you. My granddaughter usually wins because she plays a rancher, and she goes and gathers wild horses and busts them. Meanwhile,
we got a frozen mic. Bam, bam, bam. See, Mike's talking too much, and then they want. That's it. Pull the plug. Now we actually might have Mike cycle off and cycle back in. That's depends on how bad the internet hit is for him.
Well, I know you guys got some This Week in Gaming Stupid to do, so I'll throw out the final question while we're waiting for him to pop back on, and then we can get to that, finish with that. So you know how you got fantasy football leagues, right?
Right.
So what about like a fantasy RPG publishers league where you get to pick the writer, you get to pick what kind of product it's going to be, cover artist, cartographer. Who are your picks? Who are your guys or gals that you're going to have make that game?
Oh, all right. That's a rough one. And I say it's a rough one. Mike, you didn't hear that question, did you?
My internet went out. It went out for like a minute, so I got disconnected. Sorry about that.
All right, so give Mike the question, because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if I can answer this question because the number of people you're going to offend by not including on that list.
Yeah.
All right.
But here, Mike,
it's like a fantasy football thing. You can put together your own team to produce a product, and the product could be like an RPG game system or an adventure. You get to pick the author, you get to pick the illustrator for the interiors, illustrator for the cover, cartographer. Who's your team?
Wow, that is a tough one. I always said, what would I do together if I could, because I've made this statement before that give me 5 guys in the OSR and I could do better than anything WotC's put out in the last few years, which I absolutely believe is true. I mean, I could find 5 guys in the OSR easily, and we could outdo anything WotC's done. But I never, for one product at one point, it's hard just to name individual names. I mean, like I said, I could put 20 names in the OSR in a hat, draw up 5, and I would have a better starting company than WotC has right now. I guarantee you, you know. And then put another 5 artist names in another hat and draw those out in the same another 20 names. I would have a better product, because I don't know what WotC's doing lately, but they're not hiring writers, professional writers. They're not hiring professional. They're hiring people that don't write. They're hiring people to. I mean, what was it? What was the Citadel? No. What was the one they did?
The Radiant.
Where they hired people that never written in adventures before, and it was terrible. And so, yes, I would hire people that know how to write adventures. That's first thing you need to do is hire good writers, and then everything else goes from there. There's a lot of good artists out there. So,
yeah, the artist question is a rough one because it just depends on the style you're looking for.
True, yeah, true.
You know, and so that's and there's so many, and there are literally so many good ones. That is like, well, there's no wrong answer, but there's no right answer because you can choose from so many. Now, I'll throw myself on the sword for one thing. If you're designing an RPG and it's an OSR RPG or type of OSR influenced RPG or that kind of mindset, and you want it done, I don't know, in in less time than 90% of the people out there are going to put together and give you a first draft that is publishable at the first draft, I would say James Bond. But
he does everything. Well, he could do anything. He could do.
yeah,
He could
but
absolutely.
I mean that's but again, and I'm comfortable saying that. It doesn't mean that there aren't other people who can do work comparable. There certainly are, but that's the name for me that jumps out because of the time I spent with James, and I've seen James's work, and I know it, and James is a damn good friend of mine. But there's a lot of other people that are good friends of mine that are creatives that if I start going through this, I'm going to be leaving people off left and right, not because their work is inferior. It's only because you can only name so many.
You're
people.
caught in that moment, and those are the names in the moment.
And here's the reality. I'm going to throw you this little curveball. The reality is that this is a fantasy football team. We're all picking in order, and then the order reverses. So, you know what? I might not get James Bond. So maybe I don't go for an RPG. Maybe I go for a Mega Dungeon. I go, all right, you know what? Then we're going to go for Mega Dungeon. I want Craig Gillespie, or maybe I'm going to go for. It depends on what you're trying.
Yeah, if you want a really cool adventure, you're going to want Matt Finch to do it because Matt Finch does these really interesting. I mean, every adventure he's ever written, I think, is amazing. So I mean, yeah, he does some great one-shot adventures. I mean, yeah, depending on who you choose, depending on the project, it depends on the project who you choose, definitely. And the same thing with art, like Eric said, the art matters on who what kind of project you're going to do. So.
All right. So that was a question to set us up for this week in Gaming Stupid. So,
okay, yeah, let's do it because we had some real stupid this week, and we can talk about this for a while.
So, which stupid should we dive into first, Mike?
Let's dive into James Ward stupid, and not James Ward being stupid, but the people who dealt with James Ward being stupid.
Yes, and by the way, I see a lot of comments on the Book of the Face that situation's over and it's done with, and it isn't done with because not just are people still talking about it, but the admins are still talking about it. It is this is the
kind of thing. So this is a failure of common sense, I would think you'd say.
Yes.
Because this is the kind of problem that you can solve very quickly by apologizing and saying we screwed up and here's what we're going to do to fix this in the future, and then kicking a few people off your site and then moving on from there. And the problem is when you don't do that, this is what happens. Is what happened this week. And it just keeps rolling.
But there's an issue apparently, and I'm going to throw this out there. And apparently, it's a moderation issue. And,
no, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I read this on Facebook. I cannot confirm it, and I'm gonna mention a name I don't normally mention, and I'm not doing this to be Candyman. All right, but I read earlier today that a couple of months ago, however long that is, Dyson himself was banned from the group, booted for sharing his free maps because it was seen as advertisement for his Patreon.
Right.
Now, feel like you want about Dyson. I have no love for the man. That is public knowledge, and he has no love for me. But he is probably the premier, if not one of the premier mappers in the OSR and beyond. And he does a fine service to the community by donating his maps under the Creative Commons so anybody can use them in your home campaign or published work. Yes, he has a Patreon. Yes, the Patreon gives you access to different material. However, why wouldn't you not say, hey, listen, we had to take down your post. You can't do that. It violates our, they banned him. And to me, that is like, did you not know who this guy is? Did you not know who Jim Ward is?
Well, that was the issue, right? Is that so Jim has a Patreon because Jim has various health difficulties. He has a Patreon that he posts information about, and he tells stories, and just kind of does the Jim Ward thing. And apparently, for the last year, he's been posting stuff on this forum about his Patreon, And then suddenly one day somebody woke up and said, "Oh wait, this guy's asking for money. We have to suspend him." And from what I'm understanding from the explanations, the person didn't know who Jim Ward was. No clue that he was one of the founding fathers of D&D. Which
This is a group
look,
dedicated to the original TSR.
but it's 20. So this is the problem with bloat, with any kind of bloat, company bloat, group bloat, whatever. Is a certain point you get too big for your britches, and so to speak. Is it you end up having? And that's one of the reasons that Gary and I have said time and time again. And David's is exactly on board. We want to keep our membership very low at North Texas. 500 is fine. Maybe someday in the future, if it raises to 600, Gary and David don't want to do it. We'll see. But we want to keep it low because once you start expanding, you start losing control over what you do. And this is the same with anything. How many times have we seen somebody start a company or an organization or whatever, and they lose control over it? It happened to Gary Gygax.
Yeah.
The person who started MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, she got booted out eventually. I mean, once these things get so big, they become bigger than you, and you can't keep track of every little thing going on. You have to hire people to do that. And if you're not hiring the best people, or you mess up on a hire here or there, it comes back to haunt you. And this is what happens when your group, I think the guy who ran the group said, a long time it was 10,000 people. Then suddenly over COVID, it blew up and it was 23,000 people. So, I mean, he had to hire mods and
well, they're not hiring.
They're volunteering. Yeah.
Well, and here's the secret that most folks don't know. All right. When people volunteer, you have two types of volunteers. You have people that volunteer because they believe in what you're doing. They're like, hey, I want to help out and I like your community and I'm a part of it. And you know them because they're active members of the community. And you're like, all right, yeah, I'll bring you in. Did that in my Discord server. Never had a problem with one of my bartenders. All right. However, I have seen this in other groups. People want to be a mod because it's a power trip. And I get the authority to ban people, suspend people. I get to put somebody in timeout. So, and when this happened with Jim Ward, one of the first comments I saw, somebody goes, hey, is it true they banned Jim Ward? First comment on that post, well, it was about time. He should have been banned a long time ago for the stupid shit he says. And he talks about stuff that he shouldn't be talking about, and it's improper. So the assumption by a large portion, not saying majority, but a significant portion of people in that community that Jim was banned because of his politics and talking stupid. And it was overdue. And think about that. It tells you the issues you have if that's what people are already coming to the conclusion of. Now, we don't know which mod did the banning. And honestly, the apologies that I've seen is more like, well, if I give George credit, he's like, if I'd known about it sooner, I would have fixed it sooner. But here's the issue. It should never have happened like that. Right. If you're going to ban somebody and it's Jim or suspend, Jim wasn't told why he was suspended. He wasn't given you are suspended because you posted to Patreon. It was goodbye. And I know apparently Frank Metzner also left the group. I was told.
Yeah, Frank left. Yep. Frank left. Chris Clark left. Margaret Weiss left. So that great, good job, guys. That worked out great. And I think was it you, Eric, or somebody told me they lost over 800 members already? Because
I don't know what the numbers were.
That was somebody pointed out that they checked it at the beginning and then they checked it recently and they said they're down about 800 people.
Luke left. All right. Yes. Well,
Luke left.
But Don, do you know why Luke left? I can summarize why Luke left. The admin at the group, when he talked about what happened, said that they were being trolled and that a significant number of those trolls were posting on Luke's page, on Luke's feed. And and when I say trolls, it was people that were upset with what was going on. Supposedly there were people joining just to express how upset they were. Mm-hmm. So by inference, you're saying that Luke drove that Troll Brigade.
Yeah, he sicked them on you, which absolutely Luke doesn't have time to get his minions together and tell them to go destroy another group, because that's part of the whole customer, not the whole how this was handled badly, because I think George did a good job at first, because he came up and said, "Hey, this is," I mean, he admitted it was a screw up. This is a screw up. I just heard about it, and from what I gathered, he heard about it in a mod meeting. Some mod was, "Oh yeah, by the way, I banned Jim Ward this week." He's like, "Whoa, hold on here." But that goes, the whole question is, why do your monitors not know who Jim Ward is? Why would they not just talk to him first and say, "Hey, by the way, did somebody give you permission to post the Patreon? Because I noticed you've been doing Patreon posts, and that's really under our rules not allowed." Look, Jim would have taken him down if you said, "Look, Jim, we just can't do this on the page." I mean, North Texas has very strict rules about Patreons and even Kickstarters. I mean, for the most part, if you're a special guest, you can post stuff. But other than that, we're very picky about, and I've been, and to their credit, a lot of people have asked me over the years, "Hey, can I post something to the North Texas page?" And I, usually say yes, but sometimes I said no when it's not gaming related, or, something oddball, or "Can I post a Patreon for my mom's cousin who has a disease?" No, I mean, we're just not, that's not the place for it. I mean, I understand she needs help and it sucks, but this just, we just can't have that clutter on our page. Right. I delete Eric's posts all the time. I remove the posts. I don't delete them, but if it's something about, because Eric posts about all kinds of stuff, and sometimes, and he posts on the page, sometimes it's not has anything to do with gaming.
I take no offense.
And I'm just like, okay, I'll just hide posts, or I put hide posts.
I take no offense.
But that's the problem when your group gets too big, and a lot of these groups have gotten big. And one thing I noticed about the group is, so I joined a bunch of groups lately just to see what's going on out there. And by the way, I'm not impressed with what's going on out there. I'm not happy about it either, because that's some really bad stuff. But I'm noticing all these groups that are really, it's kind of like Seinfeld. They're about nothing. They're really just these groups that have these names like AD&D First Edition, Old School D&D, OSR D&D, D&D the way they used to play it, or whatever. And they're really just, I wouldn't say they're a grift. They're not a grift, because they do offer something, but they're not really about what they say they're about. They're just there to place hold and to squat on a name and to build up a subscriber base. And every day they have questions like, "So what's your favorite D&D character?" Or, or tell us about an adventure you went through that you really loved. But and they're not really there to serve any purpose. They're there to gather as many people as they can on this page, so basically money can be made off it. It's what it boils down to. So you can get advertising dollars and money being made. And there's a lot of those groups out there now. And I hate to say it, but I think this group is kind of one of those groups. I think it's just a group there to, hey, maybe it served a purpose at one point. I mean, it's called Old School TSR, whatever, but maybe when you have a bunch of old TSR guys on there, it's great. They can share stories and stuff. I don't think it's about that now. No. Especially when you've lost all your old school TSR, the people, when they've all left, and you're kind of like, we're about old school TSR stuff, and we don't have anybody from TSR page anymore.
Yeah, really. What do you do at that point? It's like, holy crap.
You just keep rolling, because you always get, and I told you this earlier, Eric, when you and I were talking, you're going to lose your 10%, which they're going to lose 10% of their people, because people are offended. And then they're going to, they also lost people that, like you said, came on and said, "Well, good riddance to Frank Menser. He's a piece of crap." And then those people all those people get kicked off too. And then you're left with this homogenized, boring group that doesn't really go beyond the color outside the numbers. And, there's 18 groups just like it.
It's 20,000 people, which is impressive as a number, but it isn't impressive if you're advertising this is about old school TSR personalities, and there are none left. Although I think Jeff Leeson is probably left in the group, since he made a comment about not naming Jim, but saying that if you're going to disobey the rules, you should get penalized.
But it's it's just endemic of the whole look. D&D got very popular during COVID. I mean, record numbers. They blew, tons of sales.
Yep.
It just absolutely blew up. And so a lot of people started these pages. That hey, I want to have a page about D&D. And sometimes they were with good reason. I mean, they liked D&D. They wanted to get it. And I think sometimes it was very cynical. Like, hey, I'm going to squat on the name Old School AD&D players, and I'm going to squat that name, and I'm going to start a group there, and people will just join the group. And maybe when I get about 5,000 or 6,000, I can start making some money, because you can make some money sometimes. When you start directing advertising, when you get about 20,000 members, you're making a little money. You're making, not as much the millions as Eric's making, from his YouTube empire. But no, you can make a little coin, and I think that a big part of this. Look, it's not surprising to me when I found out that there's certain people that run 2 or 3 of these same type of groups. The names just slightly changed, but there's the administrator for like 3 or 4 groups that talk about the same thing. Why would you need to do that? I don't have 5 groups that say North Texas RPG Con. But you'd have that when you want to squat on names. When you say, I want a group that says Old School OSR Gaming, I want a group that says Old School OD&D Gaming, I want a group that says Old School 1E Gaming, I want a group that says Old School. I mean, you do that on purpose. There's a point you do that, and that's so you can squat on all these names, and you don't care what people say in there. You want people to. I mean, people get kicked off if they say stupid stuff, but for the most part, you don't care at that point. You don't care what's going on those pages, and I'm not saying that about. Look, for all I know, George is really upset about this and this has just really got to have screwed his week over pretty badly.
Oh, I am sure, but
it was handled really terribly, but it's just endemic of the whole. I have this giant group that grew too big, and I don't know what the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. It's just kind of endemic of that whole thing.
I looked at the group of admins and mods, and there were 10. I think they're adding 5. And of that group, 8 of them were not on my friends list. And these are supposedly true old school gamers. And I would expect to at least hit 50%. These are the mods. These are your experts, right? These are the ones that are coming in with the idea that they are going to take care of stuff and be able to answer the questions and be your customer service team. And your customer service team shouldn't, their first reaction should not be, hey, how do I ban somebody? And
well, if it's nobody, if it's me and I come there with a Patreon, kick me off. Nobody knows who I don't have anything with old school.
Jim Ward.
But you've got to be conscious of the fact that the founding fathers get a little bit of a break when it comes to a page like that. Now, maybe he wouldn't get a break on a page that said, I don't know, gamers in the 90s. If he posted there, like, okay, what's Jim doing posting there? Doesn't do anything. But a group that's based on what you are, which is an old school TSR employee, you've got to know this. You've got to know this stuff. And then this is what happens. And then when you don't immediately fall on your sword, look, one thing WotC did right. Look, the bonfires were burning, right, Eric? I mean, it was getting bad. I mean, bad. And then they had that one announcement that just deflated everything when they said, "Okay, we're not getting rid of the OGL. We're backing off. We did a study. The results were overwhelming, and we're just we screwed up. We're out.
Right.
Take this into the Creative Commons. Take it, please."
Exactly. Yes. And that's exactly what you need to do if you screw up this badly. You come out. We apologize. We're sorry. What can we do to make it better? We screwed up. We're going to tell you right now we screwed up. Don't make excuses. You can explain why something happened, but don't make it an excuse. Like, well, it happened because here's what happened. Here's what happened is it got too big, and you had a mod that either didn't care or didn't know who Jim was,
or knew who Jim was and were looking to.
He needs to go. Even if he didn't know, he needs to go. And so that's your look. Bud Light just fired their 2 executives that ran their terrible campaign that lost $1 billion. I mean, of course, they're scapegoats because there's no way you can't convince me that higher ups didn't this campaign. There's no way that didn't happen.
This sounds awesome. Yes, let's make those unique cans.
And then later on, like, oh, well, hold on. we're going to hold you two responsible because
Well,
we
the
can't fire
deniability,
ourselves. We're not
yeah.
going to fire ourselves. We're going to fire you. So the same thing here. Look, you have to have a scapegoat. You have to have somebody that you get rid of to at least make it look like you care about the, what's going on. But yeah, that's it's weird that it blew up so quick and so amazingly hot, but a lot of that was because it wasn't dealt with immediately. A lot of times you got to put these fires out quick. And then that's one of the things that happened with WotC is remember how long they waited, Eric, before they ever
it was
did anything? It was weeks, and they wouldn't say anything. There was nobody saying
Silence is not
anything.
golden.
And that was terrible. And so you just leave the door open for speculation. Once speculation starts, and you have people like Jenny D, with her 500,000 subscribers running videos that say, "Hey, maybe you should cancel your subscription to D&D now or D&D Beyond or whatever." And that's what you don't want happening. You want to nip that in the bud real quick before that kind of stuff happens.
You notice that Lou has himself on mute, so he can't be caught saying anything.
Kids were empty.
He's just letting us go on. He's like, let those two guys talk.
I don't want to. I don't want to get banned from that group. I'm a member, man. I'm just gonna be like, no, good. I was on mute the whole time.
I'll let these two idiots keep going on, and they're gonna bury themselves. But
all right, well, here we're gonna go through something ancillary, I guess. I actually found out about the Ward banning boot by reading a post by Wonderfilled, which then led to other stuff because Wonderfilled was hinting that apparently Ernie is going to be Ernie's in charge of TSR, and then we found out that now the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum is being put up for sale. Don broke that news, but that news was my phone was going off as Don was putting his video together because let's just say I don't know who Don's source was, but my God, Ernie was blabbermouthing to whoever he could about the plans that he knew for the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum. So I'm not even gonna. I'm gonna skip over the elephant in the room and go right to. Would anybody here, me, Invisible Mike, Lou, like to run a GoFundMe to raise money to purchase the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum? Would that be something that you would regard as a good investment of your time and money?
Yeah.
Mike's just shaking his head.
No, it's not. It's just sad because once again, Ernie's the sad sack here, and it's just, what can you say? It's just he the poor guy. All his life, all he's ever wanted to do is follow in his dad's footsteps and be considered a big wig in the D&D world. He's always been not even a second fiddle, a third fiddle, and this one guy, some guy comes along and blows smoke up your ass and tells you oh my gosh, this is going to be great. It's a whole new thing. And you're going to be part of it, Ernie. You're going to be this huge part of the whole, company coming back and this and that. And he just wants to believe it so bad. He just, maybe he's just not the smartest guy. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. In this case, I don't know. But he's getting terrible advice from somewhere. Yeah. I don't know where this is.
There's like a new reality going on. I'm not quite sure what it is. All right, and then the third part of the trifecta of This Week in Gaming Stupid, we have to go to WotC because WotC is always good.
Oh, they're back. They're back.
They're back. So WotC just recently announced that their books, their $49.95 releases, are going up to $59.95. So it's a 20% increase in price. So after they increase their books by $10 across the board, they then changed the ability to pre-order, because you pre-order from WotC to get your books on release date. And there was an option to bundle it with the D&D Beyond material. But now you cannot pre-order a book by itself. You must bundle it with the digital for an extra $10. So that book that you would have bought before for $50 is now $70. Wow. And it forces you into their digital environment. their digital resources, their digital tabletop when it comes out. Literally puts you where they want you. You can't, but you can't. You can still get the books from Amazon. You can still get the books from your friendly neighborhood game store, so long as they're still carrying them. But if you want to get it through Watsy, and by the way, Watsy ships for free, I believe. But if you want to get it through Watsy, you now have to spend $20 more than you were before because they're forcing you on that bundle.
This is part of their master plan that this was always going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. It's just they waited for the bonfires to go down a little bit. They looked around. Okay, let's go. Let's push this out right now. It's in the middle of summer. Nobody cares. Gen Con's in a few weeks. They're going to forget about this. And so this is just kind of pushed out there. You know, that they couldn't do this earlier in the year because they were just getting hammered. So, you know, they waited. But this is been part of their master plan for quite a while.
Well, I mean, think about it. They had such a huge drop off. We'll never know the actual numbers, but so many people were canceling their D&D Beyond accounts that
they crashed, right?
Yeah, they crashed the system. They broke the system.
Wow.
And then Watsy apparently, can't say this for sure, but it sure seemed like that from my friends that were reaching out to me saying it took 5 days for Watsy to finally get me out of D&D Beyond. It took me 7 days. I got emails telling me I needed to confirm that I actually wanted to delete my account when I tried to delete my account because they don't want you to leave. This is an obvious, they're not even hiding it. This is an obvious way to bring up those D&D Beyond numbers because if you want to pre-order from Watsy, you must get a bundle. No ifs, ands, or buts. And if you're paying for the material, if you're paying for the digital, you're going to want to use the digital. And by the way, the digital comes 2 weeks before the actual release. So yes, but if you're being forced, is it really a bundle anymore? Really? If you can only buy the bundle, is it a bundle? Or is this just the way it is?
Right.
So I don't know. This is this is the future. People are already saying that we're always like taking bets now on how soon it will be before Watsy starts printing physical books.
This is going to be, this is actually going to be really good for the OSR. I think this is really good for the OSR because it's going to draw a line right here. And you're going to have people that say, look, we want to play old school. We want to have books. We like, having, OSR things out. And you're going to have people that say, we want to play online all the time. And that's what this boiling down to is that they want people that are going to play online exclusively online.
Do you think that 10 years down the road, there'll be a separation as far as like terminology, like how we say LARP and RPGs? Well, then will there also be, I play VTTs or whatever?
Sure. I don't think it's going to be 10 years, Lou. I think it's going to be much sooner than that because I think that they've always had this plan for next year, the 50th anniversary. They're going to lean super, super hard into the future of gaming is online and VTTs. And we're going to open the 50th anniversary by saying, here's this kick-ass, online play to run D&D. This is they're going to push this as hard as they can that you don't need physical books anymore. Everybody reads off their PDFs and their tablets and their phones, and you're not going to need to do that. You're going to be playing online. You're going to be playing people across the world. They're going to make it seem like the most kick-ass thing of all time.
All right, so Mike, then I got a question for you. Let's do a quick survey. Mm-hmm. The VTT, the D&D VTT, it's going to have some snappy name, like D&D Dragon Force, some shit like that. Will it be ready? Now, I shouldn't say that question because will it be will it go live? Not saying will it be ready. Will it go live when D&D Forever 5.5, whatever you're calling it, goes and starts shipping books?
So normally I would say no, but I'm going to say yes because I think they have to get this right. If they don't get this right, this is a disaster. This is worse than than Gleemax back in, for those people who want to delve back into 2009. There'd be a worse disaster than Gleemax, because I don't think anybody ever thought Gleemax is actually going to work. So
do you think the programmers working on this, 12-hour, 14-hour days are smoking cigarettes and squeezing the Gleemax brain as they're trying to get the code done?
But I think that this is going to get done because it has to get done. And if there is one person at Hasbro with a clue, they're going to make sure this thing gets done. They're going to say, look, this has to be done by next year. It has to be done on time. We can't, I mean, even if it's screwy, because look, we've gotten used to now, if you play Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, every game that comes out is basically a beta now. And they fix it on the, while you're playing it, they're fixing it.
Right.
They're going to say, look, just get it out. It has to work pretty well. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to work because we have to show people stuff and we have to have it by this date. Otherwise, we're screwed. Our goose is cooked if we don't have this out. So I'm going to say, yes, this is going to be in some way, shape, or form. This will be ready in time. Now, is it going to be buggy as shit? Probably. Is it going to be what everybody wants or thinks it's going to be? No. It's not going to have all the kick-ass features. Look, every project that ever comes out has all this bloat that gets trimmed away at the last minute. I mean, I've looked at so many games online previews and at the big, conventions, like, oh, I'm talking about video games. This game's going to have this and this is going to be all this cool stuff. And then when it comes out, it's like, oh, it's got 3 of those things. It doesn't have all 12 because they had to cut it all out to get the game out in time. So
right.
It's not going to be exactly what they want it to be. It's going to be buggy, but it's going to be out because I think it has to be out because this is the future of WotC and Hasbro. This is their
the
future.
product. The books are secondary. Yeah.
Books are not going to matter anymore, and they want books to not matter. And the way to make books not matter is to get your shit in, get your VTT stuff working.
Right. They're like, this way we force people into the digital environment. And then when we move books away from them, they're not even going to realize it. It'd be like, oh, shit, they're not offering books anymore? Well, how'd that happen? So here's my take. They're going to try to make something that will play as close to perfect as it can for levels 1 through 5. And the rest, and they're going to try to tack on the rest, but they're going to want something that people can hopefully have a decent experience with, playing out of the box, playing whatever initial material that they release with it. And it's going to take a while before their VTT reaches any of the heights that they're expecting. Now, that's going to be a problem, though, for the other VTTs.
Well, Eldridge makes a point. You don't know if the VTT might be incredible. It could be. If it's incredible, great. But there's still, what they've done here is they've effectively done what Pathfinder did, or they've just divided their audience. They said, look, here's the VTTs, the haves and the have-nots. Here's the VTTs. Here's all you guys that still play with books. That's great. You guys go play with books. We don't care about you anymore.
But the VTT, you know what? GDI and the VTT, it's all subscription. That's all they understand. They come from Microsoft, their leadership. They want this repeatable monthly income, and you don't get that from physical books. You get that from digital material, and that's the push.
And look, the writing is on the wall. There is a huge set. I go back to this OSE Kickstarter, over $700,000 for a BX clone. Over $700,000. Shadow Dark, $1.365 million for basically, here's 5e, but we're going to throw this old school stuff in there. Tales of the Valiant they underperformed. I think they made $1 million with, we're going to do 5e still, and we're going to have these really kick-ass giant books that are going to cost a lot of money. But and so they made over $1 million. People are still happy with playing with books and playing with written word, and it's matter of fact, it's doing very well. I mean, these are huge numbers. These are huge Kickstarter numbers for basically third parties. These are third party offerings, and they are doing huge numbers because there is a giant segment of the audience there's literally 50 years of players that played with books. And of those 50 years of players, you're going to get a lot of those that still want to use books and still want to play the
Oh
table.
yeah, it's gonna be great for the OSR, but they don't care about those players. They want to get new players,
and that's what they want to do. That's great, and
Yeah.
and they'll probably do fine with that, and they'll do fine with their VTT, and they'll be able to charge these poor people enough. They'll be able to hammer them and say, if you want an orc token, that's going to be $5, and a dog token is going to be $3. I mean, they're going to be able to charge for tokens.
And I'm going to bet you dollars to donuts when you buy your orc token for even $1.25, it's it's $1.25 per token.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't just, oh, I bought an orc, I can now just copy this. No, that's not going to be the way. And microtransactions was how the old VTT for 4E, the Gleemax one, was supposed to be run too. I remember that.
That's
Eldred also said it's on Unreal Engine, so it's already stable. Yeah, I'm not saying that the engine's not. I'm just saying the game aspects are going to be where the issue is.
Yeah, very much a good point there.
So, yeah, I think we covered a lot.
And you make a good point, Elder, with the VTD. So, what's good for the goose, good for the gander. OSR can use it, can do the very same thing, and I'm sure some systems probably will. But and how much I can't remember how much Swords and Wizardry made. They make 200,000. 250. I can't remember that. That's Kickstarter. I totally forgot on that one. So the OSR is doing fine right now. And if you're worried about your books disappearing, don't worry about your books disappearing, because it looks like it's going to. Let's see. They did 146,000, which is pretty good for a game that hasn't been really not published in a long time. This is their big comeback. So this stuff's doing well, and people are, look, I'm happy. I want Watchy to go off and do whatever they want to do. Go do your stuff and go do your 5e. That's great. And you could still be around, and you could be on VTT all day long. I don't care. I think it's wonderful.
Here's the thing that we're not even discussing. You can have a really stable VTT. That's great. You can have it. It could be perfect. If it doesn't have support material, and WotC is horrible at writing adventures.
Well, that's true.
You're gonna have a great engine,
but no, Eric, don't
nothing to run on it. What?
No, don't worry about it, Eric, because you know what they're gonna do. They're gonna make the 100th version of Tomb of Horrors, because that's all they do anymore. All they do is take classic tier adventures written by the guys that, by the way, they hate. And they want nothing to do with. All they keep doing is doing another version of Ghost Tower of Inverness, or Lost City of the Lost City, or that's all they do now. They just do another version of Against the Giants, and another version of Village of Hamlet, whatever, because they don't know how to create a classic adventure. They have no clue how to do it. So, I mean, that's all we'll see. We'll see. The new VTT, it's going to launch with something like Tomb of Horrors. That's what it's going to launch with, because that's all they know how to do is redo old adventures and make them.
No, it'll be keep on the Borderland. They're going to redo all.
Oh, keep on.
They already did that for 5e. They're going to do it again. Just and Philander or whatever they other.
All they know how to do now is go back to the well time and time again. And here's the best part: is they hate these guys. They hate Gary. They hate all these guys, and yet all they do is sit around and redo their modules all over the place. And look, I'm not speculating here. Eric and I know behind the scenes stuff. They don't like these people. They don't like the Alan Hammocks and the Gygaxes and the Zeb Cooks. They don't like them. So, but all they do is keep reissuing their stuff. It's ridiculous.
And they're embarrassed by the material, but it's the only material that sells. So
right. And then they have to hate themselves every time they do another reissue of Tomb of Horrors. They punch themselves in the face like, we got to do another Tomb of Horrors.
If you were a playtester for 5e, Keep on the Borderlands was basically a playtest material for 5e.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they use for the friends and family, at least. And, that was the best part about playtesting 5e. There wasn't much else that was good about playtesting 5e. Well, shit. All right. Well, Lou, Thank you, man. We
Thanks for having me, guys.
We had to go. We had to go over. We had to go over time.
I shouldn't have had so many questions, I guess. Huh?
No, it's fun, man.
Good.
Yeah, you got to have us on your show because we can script.
Definitely, you guys got to get some. Think about an adventure you want to go back and touch up, and we'll have you on here.
We got all kinds of twists.
And doesn't have to be D&D. The next episode, I think we're doing Top Secret Lady in Distress. So any adventure, any system.
I love Lady in Distress. Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite. That's the one where they parachute down the cruise ship, right?
Yeah, and I've
run that so many times.
I got to do some research because it's the one where either they did it just after the actual ship had been hijacked. Or they developed it and just coincidentally got hijacked at the same time. I can't remember what the deal is.
I can't remember. I think it might have been after the Achille Lauro, but I'm not sure. Yeah. But yeah, that was the big inspiration for that. I think was the Achille Lauro. But you're right. It was probably in development before that even happened. So it wouldn't be the first time that a game company paralleled something that happened in real life. But Eric and I will have to figure out an adventure we both love, which probably wouldn't be too hard, and we'll talk about that because we love to talk shit like that. So.
All right. Well, I'll email y'all here, or message you, I guess.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so Dragonlance, right, Eric? We'll do some some classic Dragonlance adventures there.
We're getting indigestion now.
Oh no, I ruined it. I broke it.
I sneezed at the end of the recording earlier today. I'm like 8 minutes into it. I'm like, I'm gonna get. Ah! I was like, I guess I'm allergic to Witches of the Coast price hike. Oh
dear.
Lou, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was really good. You're always welcome.
Oh yeah.
Mike, what can I say? My once a week work spouse. And at some point you'll be filling in for not this week.
Oh no, there's no show this week, right?
No show this week because it's the fifth Friday. But he's also out next week, so playing the part of Glenn Hallstrom next Friday.
We got to get Rob on.
I'll reach out to Rob.
We're gonna have Rob on. We're gonna mess with Rob Conley. So that'll be fun.
All right, folks. Thank
Rob,
you.
Get your Rob Conley bingo cards ready.
Well, hey, we got to see if we can license more Rob Conley bags because those might be a real hit.
Oh yeah. As I reached out and pulled it out right by my desk.
Right, hold on a second. Hold on. Solo layout from Mike. Look at the Rob Conley bag.
Receipts.
And we didn't understand.
Receipts of the Rusted Lord.
We didn't understand it because the adventure was deceits of the Rusted Lord, but Rob, as players, we never knew that. So that's a nice bag. So, God bless.
It is a nice bag.
Folks, as always, be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. There are numbers on the bottom of the screen. They'll be rolling probably through the end of the month at the very least. If you need them, use them. There's no shame in them. Next live stream will be, oh my God, Saturday. Again, no live stream this Friday. Saturday night, Rach and myself, Gamers Health. We'll catch you then. Later, folks.